Chapter 309. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. As the fastest rising brothel in the capital, Immortal Music House overshadowed the former Soft Jade Pavilion. Apart from the fact that the girls inside were all fairy-like and talented, its unique business model was also enough to whet the appetite of the capital's influential officials. Gu Jiao arrived at the door. The guard at the door was a woman. The woman looked at Gu Jiao's token and didn't say anything as she let her in. It was Gu Jiao's first visit to a brothel, so it was quite refreshing. There was no extravagance, toasting, exchanging of cups, singing of orioles and dancing of swallows as he imagined. The music here was not decadent, but like the sounds of nature. Walking in the spacious lobby, from time to time, girls would pass by her. Gu Jiao casually glanced at them. They really were fairies. It was as if she had entered a fairyland, just a little bit away from becoming a fairy. Suddenly, a begonia flower fell on Gu Jiao's shoulder. Gu Jiao didn't reach out to catch it, letting the flower fall to the ground. From the railing on the second floor came a soft sigh. Young master doesn't want this servant's flower. Does he dislike this servant? This sentence shattered the fairyland filter in front of Gu Jiao's eyes. Finally, there was a hint of a brothel. Gu Jiao raised her head. She was wearing a mask that covered her nose and face, but it didn't cover her rosy lips and delicate chin. It also didn't cover her pair of cold eyes. Oh! The girl upstairs let out a cry of surprise, and couldn't help but straighten her body. Gu Jiao's figure was considered tall for a woman, and with her valiant temperament, there was no pressure for her to act as a handsome young master. The girl's cry of surprise attracted several companions. Everyone stood on the railing on the second floor and looked at Gu Jiao. Young master, look at me. Someone waved a handkerchief at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao may not have eaten pork, but she has seen pigs walk. She has the spare time to strike up a conversation with a strange man. In Xianle House, she can't be considered a very powerful person. Her target wasn't them. The few of them tried to seduce Gu Jiao for a long time, but there was no response, so they couldn't help but complain. How disappointing, isn't it? Even our sister Lianxiang looks down on him. I wonder who he's here for? Lianxiang was the girl who threw the begonia flowers at Gu Jiao. Could it be that she's here for Sister Qianxue? Sister Qianxue can see him. Who wants to see me? A lazy and gentle voice sounded from the end of the corridor. Several girls who were chatting about Gu Jiao turned around and bowed respectfully. Sister Qianxue. The girl who was called elder sister looked to be around 17 or 18 years old. She was actually younger than a few of them, but Immortal Music House had never been ranked based on age. What are you looking at? The girl asked. She was wearing a plain white inner garment with a light yellow gauze outer garment. The color was bright, fresh and elegant, making people's eyes light up. She was wearing a veil that was the same color as the gauze, hazy. Her outline was vaguely visible, but it wasn't clear. Even women couldn't help but be attracted to her. The girl seemed to be accustomed to this and no longer expected them to answer her. Instead, she turned her head and looked downstairs. Oh! She also let out a small cry of surprise, her eyebrows slightly raised, and her eyes turned. A very clean young master has come. Bring him up. This person, I want him. After she finished speaking, she turned around and went up to the third floor. The servant girl behind her answered yes and stepped downstairs. She came to Gu Jiao and bowed to Gu Jiao. Young master, my family's miss invites you. Gu Jiao gave her a look. Not going. The servant girl choked. Do you know who my family's miss is? Gu Jiao gave her a small look again. Oh, who is it? The servant girl put her hands on her hips. My family's miss is Immortal Music House's courtesan. Others want to see her, but can't. My family's miss wants to see you because she thinks highly of you. These words weren't exaggerated at all. Immortal Music House's courtesan only sold her skills, and not her body. Every 3 days, she would only receive one person for 2 hours each time. Even so, those stinky men in the capital who wanted to be her guest were still as numerous as carps crossing the river. The courtesan should be a big fish. Gu Jiao thought for a moment and nodded to the servant girl, indicating that she accepted her family's Mrs. invitation. The servant girl had a headache. Was it an illusion? Why did she feel that this young master's expression just now was weighing the pros and cons? No matter what, her family's miss wanted to see him. No matter how strange the master was, he had to bring her up to see him. Gu Jiao followed the servant girl to the third floor. She didn't notice how jealous the guests below looked at her. It was very difficult to enter Immortal Music House. In Immortal Music House, it wasn't the guests who chose the ladies, but the ladies who chose the guests. Those who were lucky could be chosen to go up to the second floor. Those who were unlucky could only have a lonely night tour in the main hall. Those who went up to the third floor could be counted on one hand. Of course, Gu Jiao didn't know how lucky she was, but she could faintly feel that the third floor was particularly quiet. "Miss, the young master is here." The servant girl reported from outside the door. "Come in," the woman said. The servant girl pushed open the door and smiled at Gu Jiao, saying, "Young master, please." Gu Jiao stepped into the room. The servant girl closed the door from the outside. The room's furnishings looked relatively simple, but it could also be because Gu Jiao didn't recognize antiques. Any vase in the room was an antique from the previous dynasty. The woman sat in front of the dressing table. While wiping her hands with vanishing cream, she looked at Gu Jiao through the bronze mirror. She also had a pair of eyes that could speak. She wore a veil, but Gu Jiao could still feel that she was smiling. She said, "Young master, please sit." Gu Jiao sat down on the chair. After the woman finished applying the vanishing cream, she slowly stood up and walked towards Gu Jiao. She sat down on the chair next to Gu Jiao. There was only a small table between the two of them. The woman poured a cup of tea for Gu Jiao and handed it to Gu Jiao. She smiled and said, "Is this the first time young master has come to Immortal Music House?" Gu Jiao nodded, but didn't drink the tea she handed over. The woman sighed. "Is young master afraid that I will poison you? Or do you think that my tea is not clean?" Without waiting for Gu Jiao's reply, the woman directly took the cup of tea and drained it in one gulp. Then, as if this matter was over, her eyes curved as she asked, "What is Sir doing here at the Immortal Music Abode?" This question was strange. What could a man do in a brothel? Was it just to cover himself with a quilt and chat? The woman put her elbow on the table, her index finger gently supporting her chin. She said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "Young master is too clean. With one look, I can tell that you are not a person who would seek pleasure." Gu Jiao wrinkled her small eyebrows. Her acting skills were actually this bad? She clearly took the script of the dissolute little hedonist today. Could it be that she was only worthy of tricking that kind of idiot Gu Chengfeng? The woman's gaze fell on Gu Jiao's throat. She actually suspected her gender? Fortunately, she was already prepared and stuck an Adam's apple. When the woman saw the Adam's apple, she withdrew her gaze and continued to look at Gu Jiao's eyes. Gu Jiao's eyes didn't avoid her gaze. After all, her acting skills weren't good enough. The woman looked for a while and didn't see anything fishy, so she asked again, "Is young master here to find someone? Which sister's relative is it?" Gu Jiao thought for a while, then took out a small notebook and charcoal and scribbled, "To be honest, this prince is here to pick up girls." The woman's mouth twitched. "Pick up what?" Gu Jiao made a sound and scribbled out the last two words. He wrote in a mighty and domineering manner, "Seek pleasure." The woman chuckled. But in the next second, she couldn't laugh anymore. Because Gu Jiao wrote on the paper, "Call out the most beautiful girl here." The woman's smile froze on her face. "Young master means that I'm not beautiful enough?" Gu Jiao wrote, "If you want to say it like that, I can't do anything about it." The woman was so angry that she forgot to ask Gu Jiao why he didn't speak, and only wrote on the paper. She was the #1 courtesan of Xianlu House, the #1 beauty in the capital. How could there be a day when she was despised for her looks? She angrily said, "Young master, when did you go blind?" Gu Jiao scribbled, "I'm not blind, I just don't think you're particularly good-looking. Not as good-looking as my husband." This sentence simply drew the woman's hatred to the max. The woman was so angry that she sent a palm strike towards Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao's figure dodged. The wind from the palm strike fell on the chair behind Gu Jiao. shattering the mahogany chair into pieces. Sure enough, she has martial arts. Gu Jiao put away the brush and small notebook, and began to fight with her in the room. The woman's martial arts were so high that it was beyond Gu Jiao's expectations. Fortunately, she had received guidance from the old marquis, so there were a few moves that could restrain the opponent's moves. Gu Jiao pinned the woman's hands behind her back, and pressed her on the bed. But the woman was far more cunning than what she showed. She twisted her body and slid out of Gu Jiao's body like a loach. Taking advantage of Gu Jiao's unpreparedness, she threw Gu Jiao onto the bed. Her hands clasped Gu Jiao's hands, and her legs pressed down on Gu Jiao's legs. Saying that this old lady isn't beautiful enough, this old lady will take off your mask and see what kind of virtue you have. Daring to say that this old lady isn't beautiful. She used her right hand to clasp Gu Jiao's wrists above her head, and raised her left hand to take off Gu Jiao's mask. But Gu Jiao broke free of her shackles, and kicked her to the inside of the bed. She took the initiative, and pressed down on her hands and legs. Gu Jiao sat on her lap, untied her hair tie, and tied her hands to the bedpost. The woman struggled, and her clothes slipped, revealing a large area of snow-white skin. The woman was ashamed and angry. Gu Jiao took out the small notebook again and scribbled. Who was the person who tried to assassinate the emperor last night? The woman was startled. Gu Jiao was actually not sure if she knew, but she was the top courtesan here, and her status and martial arts were so high, so it was very likely that she knew. Perhaps she was also involved. The woman chuckled. I am a prostitute. How would I know about the current emperor's matters? Young master, did you find the wrong person? If you want to investigate a case, shouldn't you go to the yamen? Gu Jiao wrote. Shouldn't a normal person's first reaction be to ask if the emperor was assassinated? Gu Qingfeng reacted this way. The woman choked on the spot. Gu Jiao wrote domineeringly. If you don't tell me, I will take off your clothes and do you on the spot. The woman's expression changed, but then she smiled slowly. All right, come on. If you don't mind my jade arms and body, then go ahead and do it. I was the one who took a liking to young master. It is my fortune to be able to serve young master. But, as she spoke, she glanced under Gu Jiao's clothes and laughed. Young master doesn't seem to be interested in me. Gu Jiao thought. I didn't arm you, fake melon. The woman looked at Gu Jiao meaningfully. Young master, your skin is so white, your appearance is so delicate, and your body is so thin. In front of such a beautiful woman like me, you are still indifferent. Young master, you can't be a male. Before she finished speaking, Gu Jiao tore her outer clothes, threw it under the bed, and looked at her fiercely. At this moment, the door was suddenly knocked open, and a drunk man rushed in. In the blink of an eye, Gu Jiao grabbed the long gown on the ground and covered the woman's body, covering her completely. Oh, what's wrong with you? Why did you let someone break into Miss Qianshue's room? Miss Qianxue is receiving a guest. Can you afford to pay for ruining Miss Qianshue's mood? It was the woman's personal maid who spoke fiercely. Sorry, Miss Qianxue. A female guard entered the room without looking sideways and grabbed the drunkard out. Then, Gu Jiao got down from the bed and didn't force the woman to answer. She turned and walked towards the door. The woman was already stunned the moment she was wrapped in Gu Jiao's clothes. When she saw Gu Jiao let her go and leave just like that, her eyes moved slightly. Don't you want to know who the murderer is? Not in this way. Gu Jiao turned and left Immortal Delight House. If it was in her previous life, she would use all means to force a confession. After all, from childhood to adulthood, this was what her godfather taught her. But in this life, it seemed that something was different. Gu Jiao looked at her hands. Suddenly, a small box fell into her palm. Gu Jiao raised her head and looked at the third floor of Immortal Delight House, but only saw a window that was closed in a fit of pique. Gu Jiao opened the small box. Inside there was a pendant of a tassel and a note. Imperial Palace, southwest corner. The murderer is from the Imperial Palace and lives in the southwest corner. And this tassel is the murderer's personal item. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1120987228. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 310. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online can be found here. Gu Jiao went to the medical center first and changed her clothes before returning to Jishui Alley. Her grandaunt had already returned to the palace. The emperor was injured and couldn't manage the court. As the empress dowager, she couldn't really idle around all day. After playing mahjong, they dispersed. The old chancellor also went to the imperial college to deal with today's official business. The news of the emperor's assassination wasn't spread to the outside world, and no one was mobilized from the palace. Instead, Gu Chongqing stayed by the emperor's side to protect him. Gu Chongqing lived openly in Jishui Alley. Xiao Lulang and her 3 younger brothers hadn't returned yet. Gu Jiao went next door to see eunuch Wei. His injury was more serious. He drank medicine in the afternoon and fell asleep not long after. Yu Yaer said, "Eldest miss, did I make a mistake? Why doesn't he wake up?" Gu Jiao took eunuch Wei's pulse and said, "You did well. He's too weak and needs to rest for a few days." Hearing Gu Jiao say this, Yu Yaer was relieved. Gu Jiao went to her grandaunt's room to take the emperor's pulse. The emperor was also asleep. His wound didn't show any signs of inflammation, but it couldn't be taken lightly. Gu Chongqing didn't have anything to do in the afternoon, and it wasn't good to practice swordsmanship. He was afraid that the noise would disturb the emperor's sleep. He saw corn cobs hanging on the rope and took a few to pull. In the past, he saw her and Gu Yan pulling corn cobs like this. If the people in the barracks saw the cold-faced Yama, who could kill millions with a wave of his hand, sitting on a stone bench in the backyard and pulling corn cobs, their eyes would probably pop out. Gu Jiao walked over and sat down beside him. She asked about the southwest corner of the palace. Who lives in the southwest corner of the palace? Why are you suddenly asking about this? Gu Chongqing's hand that was pulling out the corn on the cob paused. I just went out and found out some information. The assassin seems to be related to the southwest corner of the palace. Gu Jiao did not mention that she went to the brothel to investigate. But Gu Chongqing wasn't stupid. Such a big piece of news couldn't be found outside. The only place he didn't investigate was Immortal Music House. Gu Chongqing narrowed his eyes and put down the corn in his hand. His face became serious. You went to Immortal Music House? Gu Jiao said seriously. No, I'm a gentleman. I don't go to that kind of place. She had already changed her clothes. If she didn't admit it, she wouldn't go. Gu Chongqing's gaze fell on her small throat. Your Adam's apple hasn't been removed yet. Gu Jiao. Her persona collapsed too quickly, just like a tornado. Gu Chongqing was angry and helpless. Although he knew that she was powerful, Immortal Music House wasn't an ordinary dragon's pool or tiger's den. That place was heavily guarded and experts were as common as clouds. Even he didn't know the depth of the place. In the future, don't go to such a dangerous place. After Gu Chongqing finished speaking, he felt that she wouldn't be obedient. He paused and said, If you want to go, bring me along. Gu Jiao thought for a moment and nodded. Gu Chongqing asked again, How did you get in? I picked up a token of Immortal Music House. Gu Jiao said without changing her expression. She could even pick up a token? Gu Chongqing wanted to say what kind of luck was this. But when he thought of Empress Dowager Zhuang and the Emperor, he felt that this girl really did have this kind of luck. He didn't suspect anything, but said, So you found out about the assassin? And the assassin is related to the southwest corner of the Imperial Palace. Do you recognize this tassel? Gu Jiao took out the tassel that Qianxue gave her. This was a tassel hanging from a jade pendant. The workmanship was exquisite. There were many such hand-woven tassels that could be bought on the streets and alleys. The only difference was that this tassel was colored. Gu Chongqing said. Normal tassels are red. The tassels of His Majesty, the Empress, and the Empress Dowager are bright yellow. It wasn't that colored tassels didn't exist, but they were relatively rare. Gu Chongqing hadn't seen anyone he knew wearing this kind of tassel. Gu Jiao asked, will the imperial concubines in the harem wear colored tassels? Gu Chongqing thought seriously. Maybe. Colored tassels weren't taboo, but they weren't very popular. But, Gu Chongqing continued, the southwest corner of the imperial palace doesn't have any imperial concubines living there. It's a place to raise bees and flowers. There's only one bee garden and one flower shed. Could it be that the meaning of the note wasn't referring to the people living in the southwest corner of the imperial palace, but the people who would appear in the southwest corner of the imperial palace? Jiao Jiao. While Gu Jiao was thinking, little Jing Kong came back from the imperial college. He jumped out of Lu Quan's carriage and ran into the courtyard. He passed by the front yard and through the hall to the backyard, and plunged into Gu Jiao's arms. His little head rubbed against her arms as much as he wanted. Recently, Gu Jiao had been busy. Little Jing Kong hadn't seen her when she came home from school for a long time. Of course, little Jing Kong didn't forget to greet Gu Chongqing. He called him Big Brother. Little Jing Kong's little bald head grew a little hair. He had a handsome buzz cut again. Gu Jiao touched his little head. Her hand was sweaty. The weather was so hot that he couldn't wear his clothes anymore. Gu Jiao went to the kitchen to get some water for him to bathe. Gu Chongqing said, let me do it. Gu Chongqing was very experienced in taking care of his little brother. He took little Jing Kong back to the house and gave little Jing Kong a bath. Little Jing Kong changed his clothes. After putting on his pants, he seemed to have discovered a new world. He walked valiantly to Gu Jiao and pointed at his pants and shoes. Jiao Jiao, Jiao Jiao, I've grown taller. His pants were shorter. They used to cover his shoes, but now they were on top of his shoes. It wasn't much. It was only 2 inches. But 2 inches was still enough to make him taller. Gu Jiao nodded. Yes, you've grown taller. Aya. Little Jing Kong was overjoyed. He began to announce to everyone in the courtyard that he had grown taller. He even showed off his pants that were shorter. However, everyone had gone out today and hadn't come back yet. Little Jing Kong had never looked forward to his bad brother-in-law, Brother Yan, and Brother Shaoshan as much as he did now. He wanted to show off to the whole world that he had grown taller. However, after waiting and waiting, Xiao Lulang was working overtime at the Hanlin Academy. Gu Yan and Gu Shaoshan went to Nanxiang to learn from Master Lu. Even Madame Yao, who went to the temple to offer incense, stayed overnight at the temple with old servant Fong. Aya, he was so worried. He didn't even have a place to show off. Little Jing Kong sighed and paced back and forth in the courtyard with his hands behind his back. He walked like Master Zhao, who was worried that the price of rice would increase tomorrow. Ahem. A low cough came from Grandaunt's room. Little Jing Kong's eyes lit up. Oh, is Grandaunt back? He ran over and pushed open the door. Great-aunt. It's not Grandaunt. When he saw the man on the bed, he tilted his head and said in surprise, Uncle Chu. Qin Chuyu's disguise was well hidden. Until now, little Jing Kong and Su Tangtang still thought that his surname was Chu. His name was Chuyu. And his father was an official in the imperial court. The emperor had just woken up and was still in a daze. When he saw Jing Kong, he remembered that he was sleeping at little divine doctor's place. Oh, it's Jing Kong, he greeted weakly. Uncle Chu, are you sick? Little Jing Kong came to the bed and looked at him with wide eyes. Gu Jiao was a doctor, so it wasn't strange for her to have a patient in her house. The strange thing was that he was staying in Grandaunt's room. Why is Uncle Chu staying in Grandaunt's room? Little Jing Kong asked. Children didn't have as many twists and turns as adults, so they asked whatever was on their mind. Why isn't Uncle Chu staying at my place? That way, he could sleep with Jiao Jiao at night. The emperor didn't expect that this room was Empress Dowager Zhuang's room. He was very surprised. This is Empress, your Grandaunt's room. Yes. Little Jing Kong nodded quickly. Then the things here. The emperor paused in the middle of his words. He was saved by little divine doctor in the middle of the night. He was almost dead, and little divine doctor was busy saving him. How could he have the time to decorate a room for him? The tables, chairs, lamps, and candles here must have been set up beforehand. Thinking that everything here was arranged by Empress Dowager Zhuang, the emperor didn't like it at all. Little Jing Kong didn't know what the emperor was thinking. When he saw that the emperor suddenly looked depressed, little Jing Kong thought that he was uncomfortable. He went forward and patted his hand. Uncle Chu, you will be fine. Jiao Jiao's medical skills are very good. He can cure you. Don't worry. The emperor looked at the little hand on the back of his hand. He was the emperor, but he was comforted by a 4-year-old child. The emperor suddenly didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Soon he realized that he had slept. His clothes were untidy, and his hair was messy. He wanted to ask someone to tidy up his appearance. However, Eunuch Wei was injured, and there were no other palace servants to serve him. He suddenly looked embarrassed. Little Jing Kong asked, Uncle Chu, what's wrong with you? Forget it, he would do it himself. The emperor reached for the hair crown on the bedside table. Little Jing Kong said, Uncle Chu, do you want to comb your hair? Let me help you. You are sick, so don't move. Do you know how to do it? The emperor asked. Of course. Little Jing Kong patted his small chest and said. He combed Little Eight's dog hair every day. Little Jing Kong went to the dressing table and took the comb. He kicked off his shoes and climbed onto the bed. He stood behind the emperor and began to comb the emperor's hair. He combed the hair quite well. The emperor was happy and talked more. Do you know how to recite poems? Little Jing Kong said. Yes, but I don't like to recite poems. The emperor laughed. Then what do you like? Little Jing Kong said. I like to sing. Recently he had learned a few new songs from Jiao Jiao. Oh. The emperor laughed. You know how to sing? Sing a few songs. Little Jing Kong thought seriously and stopped combing the emperor's hair. He brewed his emotions for a while, then raised a small hand and began to sing. The north wind blows, the snowflakes float, the snowflakes float, the year has come, father went out to hide, the 7 days of the year, the emperor shuddered. Why was it such a sad song? Did he think that he was not sad enough? Little Jing Kong was very absorbed in singing. His eyes were sad and there were tears in them. The emperor could not bear to look at him. Can't you sing something happier? Of course. Little Jing Kong changed his mood in a second. As he braided the emperor's hair, he swayed his head and sang. Other people's daughters have flowers to wear, your father. I have little money. Can't buy them. Tear off the 2-foot red hair rope, tie it up for my she. Hey, tie it up. The face of the emperor, whose hair was tied into a big braid, darkened. What kind of nonsense was this? The emperor felt that he could not listen to it anymore. If he did, he would be so angry that he would suffer from internal injuries. I have another song. Little Jing Kong cleared his throat and grabbed the emperor's braid. His small body shook. He used too much force. The emperor's hair was pulled, and his scalp was almost pulled off. Cough, cough, I got the melody wrong. Let's do it again. Little Jing Kong gathered his thoughts for a while. He looked serious and used all his strength. Oh, Uncle Ba and Little Uncle, don't show off your wealth, dead. You didn't say anything about killing his father. And you probably came to kill your mother. A bunch of fathers died. Actually, there was no one in the last line. However, Little Jing Kong felt that singing this way was not clear enough, so he added a 1. He was really a clever little brat. The emperor did not enjoy it as much as Little Jing Kong. What was this little brat singing? He was talking about killing his father and mother. Was it really good to sing such a cruel song at such a young age? He had to go back and ask that old thing Huosian what he taught the children in the Imperial College. Also he could sing, but could he not pull his hair? Was it easy to keep such a thick head of hair at his age? Be careful not to make him bald. Xiao Luleng came back from the Imperial College first. Little Jing Kong finally stopped damaging the emperor's hairline and ears. He went to show off to his bad brother-in-law that he was tall. After showing off, he sat at the door, stretched out his legs, and placed his trouser leg in the most conspicuous position. He showed off to everyone in the family who came back. Gu Shaoshan touched his nose and said, "Could it be that you raised your trouser leg?" Gu Shaoshan pulled Little Jing Kong's belt back to his belly button. "See, it can cover his shoes again, right?" Little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong burst into tears. Gu Xiaoshan was the reality of the world. In the end, Gu Jiao measured little Jing Kong's height and showed him his previous data. He was sure that he had really grown taller, but not as much as 2 inches. You've grown 1 inch taller, Gu Jiao said. Little Jing Kong sat in Gu Jiao's arms and played with Gu Jiao's hair pitifully. Is 1 inch taller? Gu Jiao touched his little head. Of course. Little Jing Kong lowered his head and played with his fingers. Then I have to reward you with a kiss. Gu Jiao kissed his head. Little Jing Kong jumped down, covered his head with his little hands, and quickly ran back to the house. At night, when Gu Jiao went to change the emperor's medicine, she asked the emperor if he had seen the tassel. The emperor shook his head. I haven't seen it. The next day, Gu Jiao went to the imperial palace. Empress Dowager Zhuang went to the court. Gu Jiao took the tassel and asked Eunuch Qin, Eunuch Qin, have you seen this tassel? Eunuch Qin shook his head. I haven't seen it. Eunuch Qin, is there a place to collect honey in the imperial palace? She asked. Eunuch Qin said, there's a bee garden in the southwest corner. Do you want fresh honey? I'll ask someone to collect it. No, I'll go by myself. Gu Jiao paused. Can I go? Eunuch Qin smiled. Of course. Eunuch Qin took a jar and gave it to Gu Jiao. There are beekeepers there. If you are tired, you can give it to them. Okay. Gu Jiao took the jar. Eunuch Qin was worried that she would get lost, so he asked the eunuchs of the Rensho Palace to send her there. Gu Jiao decided to wait here for the rabbit. She waited for a whole morning, but no one passed by except the gardeners and the beekeepers. When Gu Jiao was about to leave, several women came from the end of the path. The leader was Princess Ning. Princess Ning was followed by 2 eunuchs with flower baskets and 4 maids. Princess Ning had a miscarriage a few days ago, so her face was still a little swollen. It was hot in June, but she was still wrapped in a cloak. Princess Rui Wang said that this was the 3rd miscarriage of Princess Ning. Every miscarriage was harmful to a woman, not to mention that she had miscarried 3 times. In ancient times when medical conditions were not developed, it was really difficult for her to get pregnant again. She lived in Prince Ning's mansion outside the palace, so she didn't know why she came to such a remote corner in the southwest. Was she the person she was waiting for? Gu Jiao was in a small wooden house, but her eyes fell on Princess Ning through the window. Princess, you can leave this to us. Why do you have to do it yourself? A maid asked. Princess Ning said, you don't understand. You wasted the good honey. Call the beekeeper here. Yes. The maid answered, went to the bee garden, and called the beekeeper on duty. The beekeeper bowed to Princess Ning respectfully. Greetings, Princess Ning. Princess Ning asked, what honey have you picked today? The beekeeper replied, Princess Ning, there is date honey, locust honey, and half a jar of flower honey. Give it to me. Princess Ning said. Yes. The beekeeper poured a small cup of each of the 3 kinds of honey. Princess Ning tasted them one by one with a spoon and said, date honey. How much does Princess Ning want? The beekeeper asked respectfully. 2 jars. Princess Ning said. The beekeeper filled 2 jars of honey for Princess Ning, and the eunuch next to Princess Ning took them. Then they went to the garden to pick a few potted plants. Looking at Princess Ning's back, Gu Jiao came out and said to the beekeeper, I picked up a tassel on the ground. Is it Princess Ning's? Oh. The beekeeper took the tassel and caught up with Princess Ning. Gu Jiao saw the beekeeper give the tassel to Princess Ning, but Princess Ning shook her head. Her expression didn't seem to be fake. Miss, Princess Ning said it wasn't hers. The beekeeper returned the tassel to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao wasn't dressed like a concubine or a maid, but she was from Rensho Palace, so the beekeeper still didn't dare to neglect her. Gu Jiao took the tassel and asked, has anyone else been here? The beekeeper smiled and said, there are a lot of bees here, so it's easy to sting. Usually no one comes here. Was the courtesan of Immortal Music House teasing her? Gu Jiao pondered the words Imperial Palace, Southwest Corner in her mind. Aside from the beehive, there was only the garden in the southwest corner. She had been watching the garden, but there was no movement. Gu Jiao touched her chin. While she was puzzled, someone else came. This time, It was the Crown Princess. The Crown Princess had been recuperating in the East Palace since she was beaten up by Gu Jiao. Her injuries had completely healed yesterday, and she walked out of the East Palace this morning. The beekeeper was frightened. It was fine if Princess Ning came, but why did the Crown Princess also come? The beekeeper hurried forward and bowed. This servant greets the Crown Princess. The Crown Princess nodded lightly. Gu Jiao was standing at the entrance of the beehive. Before she could return to the wooden hut, the Crown Princess saw her. The Crown Princess recognized Gu Jiao. After all, she had seen Gu Jiao from afar. And Gu Jiao also recognized the Crown Princess. After all, she had beaten the Crown Princess deeply. However, in the impression of the two, the other party should not recognize them. This was their first official meeting. As a woman who could charm the Crown Prince, the Crown Princess's appearance was impeccable. It was not an exaggeration to say that she could cause the fall of a city at first sight. In comparison, Gu Jiao, who had a red birthmark on her cheek, paled in comparison. At least in the eyes of others. The Crown Princess was the moon in the sky. Even the beauties in the imperial harem were overshadowed by her. Let alone this young girl with a disfigured face. Who are you? Why don't you kneel when you see the Crown Princess? The chief eunuch beside the Crown Princess asked. If it was the Crown Princess's female official, she would probably recognize Gu Jiao. Unfortunately, this chief eunuch had never seen Gu Jiao before. The bee craftsman hurriedly said in a small voice, "Gong Gong, this girl is from Renshou Palace." The chief eunuch's expression changed, but it was only for a moment before he raised his voice. The people of Renshou Palace are the most disciplined. Even Miss Zhuang has to respectfully bow when she sees the Crown Princess. This flattery and trampling was clearly telling Gu Jiao that even Empress Dowager Zhuang's legitimate grandniece had to bow when she saw the Crown Princess. Regardless of her status, could she surpass Zhuang Yueshi? The Crown Princess looked at Gu Jiao. She suddenly wanted to see this woman bow in front of her. But Gu Jiao did not bow to her. As a member of the Eastern Palace, the chief eunuch naturally did not get along with Renshou Palace. But he could not go up and punish Gu Jiao. He had to use the rules to suppress Gu Jiao. Does the Empress Dowager know you are so rude? Is it any of your business whether the Empress Dowager knows or not? It was Gong Gong Qin. The chief eunuch's expression changed, and he lowered his head. They were both chief eunuchs of the master, but he could not be compared to Gong Gong Qin. Only Gong Gong Wei could be compared to Gong Gong Qin in terms of status. The Crown Princess also showed a trace of confusion when she saw Gong Gong Qin. Gong Gong Qin came to Gu Jiao and bowed respectfully. Miss Gu, the Empress Dowager has left the court and asked why you have not returned to Renshou Palace for dinner. After saying this, he turned around and bowed to the Crown Princess. This servant greets the Crown Princess. His smile and etiquette were flawless, but he greeted Gu Jiao first before greeting the Crown Princess. This was already embarrassing the Crown Princess. A subtle light flashed through the Crown Princess's eyes, but her expression was normal. Gong Gong Qin, you are excused. Miss Gu, have you picked the honey you wanted? Yes. Gu Jiao nodded. It's in the room. Gong Gong Qin personally took out 2 jars of honey and said with a smile, Miss Gu, is there anything else you want? There are many flowers in the garden. Miss Gu, do you have any flowers you like? Gu Jiao shook her head. I don't grow flowers. Gong Gong Qin smiled. Okay. Then let's go back. If we don't go back, the Empress Dowager will be worried. The Crown Princess could hardly hide the surprise in her eyes. She had known Gong Gong Qin for so long, but she had never seen him so polite to anyone. Even in front of Empress Xiao and noble consort Zhuang, he was just polite. But his politeness to Gu Jiao seemed to be more than just politeness. There seemed to be a trace of love and affection in that respect. During the whole process, Gong Gong Qin treated the Crown Princess as heir and only asked Gu Jiao questions. It seemed that he had endless worries. In the past, Gong Gong Qin was not so talkative. The Crown Princess frowned. The two then left. The moment they brushed past each other, Gu Jiao suddenly pointed at the tassel on the ground and said, Your tassel fell. The Crown Princess lowered her head to look. It's not mine. Gu Jiao. Oh. It was also not the Crown Princess's. The people that appeared in the southwest corner of the imperial palace today were unrelated to this tassel. Why was it like this? Gu Jiao left with confusion. The crown princess' confusion was no less than Gu Jiao's. She looked at Gu Jiao's back and felt that something was wrong. Isn't she the wife of the new top scholar? Why is she so close to Rinshou Palace? Crown princess. The young palace maid suddenly remembered something and said, "Do you still remember the matter of the fifth prince being pushed into the water 2 days ago? Noble consort Shu wanted to punish that person, but she was taken away by the Empress Dowager. That person even sat on the Empress Dowager's Phoenix sedan." This matter caused a stir in the imperial palace. Although the crown princess did not leave her room, she still heard about it. That person was noble consort Shu's niece, the true eldest miss of Marquis Ding and Fu. It was said that she had great medical skills and was treated as a guest of honor by the Empress Dowager. The crown princess's expression was slightly startled. It's her? Xiao Lulang didn't marry a normal peasant girl, but a true Marquis Fu's daughter? In this instant, the crown princess's heart didn't know what to feel. The young palace maid muttered, "Speaking of which, has this Marquis Fu's daughter gone crazy? Marquis Ding and Fu is His Majesty's trusted aide. Xiao Lulang is also His Majesty's new top scholar. Her father, brother, and husband are all His Majesty's people, but she wants to be with Empress Dowager Zhuang. Is she not afraid of being rejected by her father and brother, not afraid of being abandoned by her husband?" That's right, wasn't she afraid? How could she live so fearlessly, so unscrupulous? Gu Jiao returned to Rinshou Palace and personally made a dish of honey crispy duck for her grandaunt. It was similar to the sweetness of the sugar-skin duck, but it wasn't as sweet. It also had a trace of honey's natural sourness, making the taste richer. Without the emperor's annoying son fighting for food, Empress Dowager Zhuang ate happily. After eating, Gu Jiao took out the tassel. "Grandaunt, have you seen anyone wearing this tassel?" Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at the tassel and frowned. "Such an ugly tassel, I've never seen it before." "Not ugly," Gu Jiao felt. "Wait, it seems like I've seen it before." Empress Dowager Zhuang looked up at the sky and carefully tried to recall. She waved her hand. "I can't remember." Great, the clue she had just obtained was suddenly cut off. "Where did you get this tassel?" Empress Dowager Zhuang asked. "I picked it up," Gu Jiao said without a change in expression. "This tassel may be related to the assassin who tried to assassinate His Majesty." "Humph." Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted, her face full of disgust. "You can't even clean up after killing someone." Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao went to the bee garden in the afternoon again, but she still found nothing. If you have a good title, you can also at me in the comments section. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/112074492. HTML Genius memorized this site's address. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 311. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. Gu Jiao went to the imperial palace again, and came to the southwest corner again. The beekeeper saw her come so late and hurried forward to ask, "Miss Gu, do you need more honey?" At noon, he heard eunuch Qin of Rinshou Palace call her Miss Gu. He thought she was just a girl related to Rinshou Palace, but the favorite of the Empress Dowager treated her more respectfully than the crown princess, so the beekeeper didn't dare to slight her. At this time, the sun was setting, and the sky was gray and blue. Only the red light of the setting sun lit up the last bit of twilight. Gu Jiao's gaze fell on a pavilion shrouded by the setting sun. The pavilion was a bit far away. From her angle, She could only see the cornices. "What's over there?" Gu Jiao pointed and asked. The beekeeper followed Gu Jiao's finger and looked at the roof tiles under the setting sun. He said, "That seems to be the residence of the hostages of the Qin kingdom." The Qin kingdom and the Zhao kingdom had been at odds for a long time. The hostages of the Qin kingdom naturally wouldn't live in a luxurious palace. Instead, they were given a secluded small courtyard, separated from the harem by a beekeeping path. There were guards at both ends. Gu Jiao looked at the cornices that were swallowed by the night and gradually understood the meaning of the imperial palace, the southwest corner. It wasn't that the other person lived in the southwest corner of the imperial palace, nor did the other person go in and out of the southwest corner of the imperial palace. It was that the other person could be seen from the southwest corner of the imperial palace. The summer in the Zhao kingdom was hotter than in the Qin kingdom. The cicadas in the trees kept croaking, which seemed to add a bit of dryness. There was a small lotus pond nearby, and frogs croaked occasionally. It really wasn't a comfortable residence. The lanterns under the corridor were gradually lit by the palace servants. The patrolling guards held long swords and looked dignified. All of a sudden, a small figure flew into the sky. The little figure's movements were extremely light and did not alarm any of the guards. However, a gray shadow suddenly flashed out from the seemingly inconspicuous corner. It was as fast as lightning, and in the blink of an eye, a curved blade was placed on the little figure's neck. "All right, Song Yi, let her in. She is this prince's honored guest." A lazy voice with a hint of ridicule slowly came from inside the house. The gray-clothed man coldly put away the scimitar in his hand, but the vigilance in his eyes didn't decrease at all. He stared at Gu Jiao without blinking, as if as long as Gu Jiao did not behave in the slightest, his scimitar would be placed on Gu Jiao's neck again. Gu Jiao had no intention of hiding her identity. She wore her own clothes and did not even wear a mask. She calmly pushed open the door and entered. There were quite a few oil lamps in the house, but the brightness of the oil lamps was limited. Even when the whole house was lit, it was still a dim yellow. Yuan Tang was sitting on a chair while a palace servant changed his dressing. He seemed to have been injured in the waist and abdomen. The bandages that had been removed were covered in blood. The house was filled with the smell of wound medicine. His clothes were open, revealing a strong and sturdy chest, well-defined abdominal muscles, and two clearly defined mermaid lines. It was unknown whether it was because of the heat or the pain, but there were sparkling drops of sweat dripping down from his wheat-colored skin, dripping over each firm but not exaggerated muscle. This was a body full of masculine strength. The air was suddenly filled with the scent of male hormones. Yuan Tang did not expect Gu Jiao to come in so quickly. Fortunately, the palace servant moved quickly and quickly applied medicine and bandaged him. "You can leave." When the palace servant was about to tidy up his clothes, he raised his hand. "Yes." The palace servant tidied up and left. Yuan Tang closed his clothes and tied his belt. He was a man, so it was not a big deal to be seen, but why? Yuan Tang glanced at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao's expression was magnanimous. She was even more magnanimous than the person who was being stared at. This woman was really interesting. "All of you can leave as well." Yuan Tang ordered the palace servants in the room. Everyone left the room in silence. The gray-clothed man just now stood guard at the door, with no intention of leaving. Gu Jiao felt a very powerful aura from the gray-clothed man. It was almost on par with the old marquis. She wondered who would be the stronger one if the two of them fought. Of course, if she was in her prime, she would have no problem cutting his throat. "Don't worry about him," Yuan Tang said with a smile. Gu Jiao had met Yuan Tang once in Lu Yixing's courtyard. At that time, Gu Jiao only felt that Yuan Tang's appearance was handsome, but not absolutely beautiful. At least, compared to his cousin Lu Yixing, he was a bit less exquisite. But after seeing his figure today, she understood that this Chun Empire hostage was also the best among men. Gu Jiao looked at him magnanimously. Yuan Tang couldn't help but laugh. "Should I call you Dr. Gu, or Madame Xiao?" "Up to you," Gu Jiao said. "That's good, Dr. Gu." Yuan Tang smiled and said. "You came to see me so late. Is something the matter?" This was a question he already knew the answer to. But between people, There was always a need for a few words of nonsense. Gu Jiao didn't like to talk nonsense. She glanced at his wounds and got straight to the point. You even personally went to assassinate the emperor? Yuan Tang was silent for a moment, then laughed lowly. How could I not personally go for such an important assassination? These words were undoubtedly an admission of everything. Gu Jiao said indifferently. You're quite straightforward in admitting it. Yuan Tang smiled bitterly. From the moment my Suezi disappeared, I was prepared to be exposed. But I didn't expect it to be so fast, and I definitely didn't expect it to be you. Yuan Tang didn't make any unnecessary excuses. Only a fool would treat someone else as a fool. Gu Jiao being able to investigate to this extent showed that she wasn't a fool at all. Since he couldn't fool her, why waste his breath? Why? Gu Jiao asked. It's my duty. Yuan Tang said. Gu Jiao asked. The Chen Empire's monarch's order? Yuan Tang turned his head to look at the night sky outside the window. I also have my own selfish motives. My aunt died at the hands of Empress Dowager Zhuang and the Zhao Empire's emperor. At that time, they hadn't turned against each other yet. My aunt was forced to death by them. So the two of them are both my enemies. Your aunt was a spy. Killing your aunt was part of their duty. Gu Jiao's gaze fell on his face, not avoiding it at all. A person's strength wasn't necessarily reflected in their martial arts, status, or talent. The strength of their heart was the most undefeatable. This was a woman whose heart was filled with strength. Yuan Tang retracted his gaze and met her gaze. So how can there be right or wrong in this world? It's just that my status forced me to do it. I was born in the Chen Empire and am the Chen Empire's prince. As long as the two countries are at odds, I will continue to fight with the Zhao Empire. Even if my aunt didn't die, I would not let go of Empress Dowager Zhuang and the Zhao Empire's emperor. Gu Jiao asked. The matter of instigating discord between Marquis Ding and Manor and the Marshal's Manor was also done by you. Yes. Yuan Tang did not deny it. Gu Jiao continued. The person who went to the military camp to assassinate Gu Chongqing was you? Yuan Tang, yes. Gu Jiao. The person who went to Thousand Sound Pavilion to find Fei Shuang was also you? Yuan Tang. That's right. Yuan Tang admitted to everything. Gu Jiao's expression was very calm from beginning to end. She was not shocked or confused by his straightforward admission. Instead, after a moment of silence, she opened her mouth to ask him, how do you know so many things? Tang Ming's hobbies, Fei Shuang's identity, and even the emperor's whereabouts. Yuan Tang smiled and said, do you think the Qin Empire's ruler would send an incompetent hostage to the Zhao Empire? This was also true. It was just like when the Zhao Empire had sent the very talented and Jun Wang to the Qin Empire as a hostage. A hostage without any ability would only die in a foreign land if they went to the enemy country. Yuan Tang reached out a hand. Can you return the Suezi to me? No. Gu Jiao flatly refused. Yuan Tang sighed helplessly. That was given to my mother by my maternal grandmother. It was hung on a jade pendant. There were only 2 pieces in total. One was given to my mother, and the other was given to my maternal aunt. Playing the sympathy card did not work on Gu Jiao. If she did not return it, she would not return it. Yuan Tang saw that Gu Jiao was really determined. He knew that there was an 80% chance that he would not be able to get his Suezi back. His heart ached as he accepted this fact. What do you plan to do? He asked. I'll report you. Gu Jiao said bluntly. Yuan Tang. Was she that direct? Yuan Tang said. In any case, I helped you before. Have you forgotten? Gu Jiao said. You speak as if you didn't benefit from it. The corner of Yuan Tang's mouth twitched. Why did my cousin tell you everything? When the crown princess used the cat to test Xiao Lulang, it was Yuan Tang who had the cat taken away. However, that cat originally belonged to Yuan Tang. If Gu Jiao had not told him about this, he would have been implicated as well. This matter could not be considered as a debt. At most, Yuan Tang was being kind and helping others to benefit himself. After Gu Jiao left, the gray-clothed man stepped in. Your Highness, this subordinate will kill her. Yuan Tang snorted coldly. Do you think it's easy to kill her? The gray-clothed man said. She's still young. Her martial arts are not up to standard. In another 2 or 3 years, I'm afraid that we won't be able to kill her. With the gray-clothed man's ability, he should be able to detect any movement within 100 steps. However, that girl was only discovered when she was right under his nose. Yuan Tang smiled faintly. You won't be the same person in another 2 or 3 years. Why? Are you afraid of her? No. The gray-clothed man said. Yuan Tang covered his wound and finally showed a hint of pain. All right, this girl is a useful talent. Our main goal is to recruit her. It's a pity to kill her. The gray-clothed man thought for a moment and nodded. There's no one in this world that your highness can't win over. Except for my cousin. Yuan Tang snorted and said angrily, I can easily win over people with my means. However, he can't feel it when I treat him with my heart. Gu Jiao returned to Jade Water Alley. Xiao Lulang had already finished his duty at Hanlin Academy and was tutoring little Jing Kong in the study. Gu Jiao did not disturb the two. She first went next door to check on Eunuch Wei's injury, and then went to her great-aunt's room. The emperor suddenly wanted to eat sugar-coated duck. Gu Chongqing went to the kitchen to help the old chancellor pluck duck feathers. Only the emperor was in the room. Seeing her coming, the emperor's eyes lit up. However, thinking that she was Empress Dowager Zhuang's servant, his eyes dimmed again. He asked calmly, Didn't you change the medicine today? I have something to tell your majesty, Gu Jiao said. What's the matter? The emperor asked. Gu Jiao said seriously, I know who the assassin who tried to assassinate his majesty is. The emperor sneered. Don't deliberately find someone to take the blame for your great-aunt in order to get rid of the crime. I'm not that bored. Gu Jiao took out the colorful tassel from her arms. I pulled this from the assassin when I fought with him. I asked your majesty if you knew this tassel. Your majesty said you didn't know. Your majesty, do you know why you don't know? Because the assassin is not from the palace of Zhao Kingdom, but he knows your majesty's whereabouts like the back of his hand. The emperor frowned. Who is he? Gu Jiao stared at the emperor and said, The hostage of Qin Kingdom. Gu Jiao's words were half true and half false. Other than the fact that the tassel was not pulled from the assassin's body, everything else was true. However, Gu Jiao only had this piece of tassel. There was no other evidence. Whether the emperor believed it or not depended on his trust in Gu Jiao. This was one of the reasons why Yuan Tang dared to be honest with Gu Jiao. So what if Gu Jiao knew the truth? It was too far-fetched to convict him based on a piece of tassel. Compared to him, the hostage of Qin Kingdom, the emperor was more willing to believe that Empress Dowager Zhuang was the mastermind. The emperor said coldly, Do you think that by framing the hostage of Qin Kingdom, you can get rid of the crime for your great-aunt? If your majesty wants to make your loved ones suffer and your enemies happy, then let's just assume that for now. Gu Jiao finished speaking and turned to leave. The emperor was furious. He had thought that she had gone to the clinic after running around day after day, but it turned out that she had gone to find evidence for that vicious woman. That vicious woman was so nice. One after another, they all fell in line for her. Old concubine Jing Ning'an and the little miracle doctor had all been poisoned by that vicious woman. They would be fooled by her, but he would not. I definitely won't. That night, the first thing Eunuch Wei did after regaining consciousness was to drag his heavily injured body to visit the emperor and beg for forgiveness. This old servant failed to protect the emperor. Please punish me, your majesty. The emperor looked at Eunuch Wei, whose hands and neck were bandaged, and couldn't bear to see him like this. You're not a guard. Why do I need you to protect the emperor? Get up. This old servant doesn't dare. I order you to get up. Yes, your majesty. Eunuch Wei stood up shakily. The emperor told him to sit and talk. Eunuch Wei said awkwardly, Your majesty, please don't make this servant feel unworthy. The emperor sighed. Why did he have to do this when he was alone? Your majesty, Eunuch Wei said. I met Miss Gu in the courtyard just now. The emperor's eyes turned cold. Are you here to speak for the Empress Dowager as well? Eunuch Wei hurriedly said. Why would I speak for the Empress Dowager? This servant was only thinking that this servant was lying in a pool of blood and was about to die. Miss Gu was alone, and this servant had completely forgotten that she was just a woman. This servant did not let her escape, but instead asked her to save His Majesty. What kind of feelings did she have when she went without hesitation? She knew how dangerous it was ahead, and she knew that Your Majesty and the Empress Dowager were not on good terms. Gu Jiao had saved the emperor, but she didn't mention any details. The emperor thought that she had met him by chance, but he didn't know that she had risked her life to find him. The emperor's mood suddenly became complicated, and he didn't feel good about it. Eunuch Wei looked at the emperor with tears in his eyes and said earnestly, "Your Majesty, you can choose not to trust the Empress Dowager, but can you not trust the little miracle doctor?" The emperor fell silent. The next day, Yuan Tang was recuperating in his room when several guards from the Dali Temple and the Honglu Temple came to his residence. The official from the Dali Temple said, "Your Majesty was attacked by an assassin." The Dali Temple caught an assassin, and that assassin turned out to be one of the sixth prince's people. We also found the sixth prince's personal belongings at the scene. We asked the sixth prince to come with us to the Dali Temple. Yuan Tang frowned. He didn't expect that Gu Jiao had the ability to make the emperor believe her. That witness was naturally used by the emperor to frame Yuan Tang. After all, a single spike was not enough to hold Yuan Tang. Yuan Tang could say that his spike was lost or stolen. However, the sudden appearance of a witness was a pain in the ass. And that witness was one of Yuan Tang's bodyguards. Not a personal bodyguard, but a third-class bodyguard. Yuan Tang's face became very ugly. He actually bribed the people around this highness. This highness really underestimated the imperial family of Zhao country. When he bribed him, Yuan Tang had no way to find out. Fortunately, the other party was only a third-class bodyguard. He didn't have many opportunities to see him, and it was unlikely that he would come in contact with his secrets. But no matter what, he was bitten by this person, and the situation became a bit tricky. The man in gray said with a murderous look, "I'll go kill him. Let's make it so they can't testify." Yuan Tang said coldly, "It's useless. He already confessed and signed the confession. Even if he's dead, the evidence is still valid." Of course, Yuan Tang wouldn't obediently let himself be captured. But being forced to this point, it was impossible not to give an explanation to the Zhao country. In the end, Yuan Tang had no choice but to give up the rook to save the king. He handed over one of his trusted aides. The aide took all the blame on himself, saying that it was his own personal behavior, and had nothing to do with Yuan Tang. When he was in the state of Chun, this advisor was a retainer of his residence. He was resourceful and loyal to him. He had given him advice on many occasions, and helped him avert danger. When he handed over the aide, Yuan Tang's heart was bleeding. He wanted to hand over a random bodyguard as a scapegoat, but the Zhao country wouldn't buy it. It wasn't that he was greedy for life and afraid of death, but he couldn't die before his great cause was completed. The news of the emperor's assassination caused a huge uproar in the capital. The imperial court was also slightly shaken. However, the emperor didn't do anything. He completely became a hands-off shopkeeper in Bishui Alley. Of course, he didn't say that he lived in Bishui Alley. He announced to the public that he lived in the temporary imperial residence. Although the misunderstanding of the assassination was resolved, the relationship between the emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang was still as cold as ice. The emperor still didn't like Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang still ignored the emperor. Empress Dowager Zhuang left after playing cards. At first, Empress Dowager Zhuang played cards secretly from the emperor. Later, when she saw that the emperor didn't leave, Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't bother to hide it anymore. "I just want to play cards. Do whatever you want." The emperor looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang's back as she went to play cards. He gritted his teeth and said, "You don't abide by the virtue of a woman. You have no sense of shame. You violate the rules of the imperial palace. You don't listen to the teachings of the ancestors. You don't deserve to be." Gu Jiao stuffed a thermometer into the emperor's mouth. "Keep it in your mouth. Don't talk," Dr. Gu said seriously. The emperor was speechless. The news of the emperor's assassination caused a stir in the capital. Although he didn't announce his identity to Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao's family, Little Jingkong and Gu Xiaoshan were the only two people in the family who didn't guess his identity. Little Jingkong had already accepted the fact that he was Chu Yu's biological father, Uncle Chu. Therefore, it was difficult for the outside world to affect him. Gu Xiaoshan was pure naive. Even Gu Yan guessed the emperor's identity. After all, there was no one else in the world who had the guts to stare at his great-aunt. The weather was too hot these days. Gu Yan had a heat stroke in the Qinghe Academy. After that, Gu Jiao went to the academy to ask for leave for him so that he could rest at home. In the past, he refused to go to school. Now that he was free, he felt bored. Bored to death, he sat under the shade of a tree in the yard and sighed. Gu Jiao went to the medical center. Xiao Lulang went to the Hanlin Academy. Gu Xiaoshan and Little Jingkong went to school. He didn't have a playmate. He really wanted to go to school. While he was bored to death, a tall figure loomed over him, blocking the light above his head. Then an exquisite wooden bow appeared in front of him. Gu Yan was stunned. He looked at the bow, and then looked up at the person holding the bow. "It's you." Gu Yan turned his face away. Gu Chongqing went in front of him and pulled the bow in his hand. He said to him, "Do you want to shoot an arrow?" Gu Yan said lightly, "I don't know how to shoot an arrow." Gu Chongqing said softly, "I'll teach you." In fact, Gu Yan had always had a dream of being a Jianghu hero, riding the fastest horse and shooting the farthest arrow. Unfortunately, with his small body, he didn't even have the chance to ride a horse alone, let alone shoot an arrow. He couldn't even pull the bowstring. Gu Yan suppressed the throbbing in his heart and said with disgust, "I don't want to." Gu Chongqing said softly, "Jiao Jiao said that your body is much better than before. You should be able to pull the bow. If you don't believe me, you can try." Of course, he couldn't say that he specially made the lightest bow to take care of his body. Even the 4-year-old Little Jingkong could pull it. Men always wanted to save face, even if it was the 15-year-old Gu Yan. Gu Yan secretly glanced at the bow that Gu Chongqing handed over. It was really exquisite. Every curve and pattern was done in accordance with his aesthetic standards. Most importantly, the bow was inlaid with jade. He was quite moved. Gu Chongqing saw through him but didn't say anything. He handed the bow to him and walked over to set up the target. "Try it." Gu Yan reluctantly pulled the bow. He was just casually trying. He didn't think that he would really pull it. He could pull a bow. Gu Yan couldn't believe it. Then, a wave of ecstasy surged from the bottom of his heart. Gu Chongqing looked at his stunned little face, and the corners of his mouth unconsciously curved up slightly. He also specially made a quiver and 10 command arrows, all of which were lighter in weight. He took the quiver and put it on the stone table next to Gu Yan. He took an arrow and handed it to him. It was Gu Yan's first time holding an arrow. He didn't know how to release it. Like this. Gu Chongqing pressed his hand and knocked the arrow in the right place. Gu Yan's hand was white and tender, slender and delicate. Gu Chongqing's hand was also slender, with distinct joints. But because of years of practicing martial arts, there was a layer of calluses on his hand. He just gently pressed the back of Gu Yan's hand, but a red mark quickly appeared on the back of Gu Yan's hand. Gu Chongqing was a little distressed. He hurriedly let go of his hand and said to Gu Yan, "Try shooting it." Gu Yan shot an arrow and successfully missed the target. "It's okay. It's already very good that you can shoot the first arrow." Gu Chongqing took another arrow and gave it to him. In the end, Gu Yan missed the target again. Gu Yan was discouraged. "Your posture is wrong." Gu Chongqing came behind Gu Yan and held his hands with both hands. He pulled him into his arms and gently pulled the bow with him. "You have to pull it here. Aim your eyes and look at the bullseye. Release the arrow." Both of their hands let go at the same time. With a whoosh, the arrow left the bowstring and hit the bullseye. Gu Yan, wow. Gu Chongqing looked at him deeply, his eyes full of affection. "Ah Yan, you're really good." Gu Yan snorted. "Of course I'm good. I don't need you to tell me that." The tuft of hair on the top of his head stood up again. Gu Chongqing couldn't hold back and laughed softly. His laughter wasn't loud, like a warm string under the sun. His smile wasn't exaggerated either. His body trembled slightly as he tried to hold back his laughter. It was inexplicably infectious. Gu Yan wanted to put on a sour face, But suddenly he couldn't. He felt that he was too disappointing. He turned his head and fiercely said, "Are you going to teach me archery or not?" Gu Chongqing tried hard to stop laughing, but he couldn't stop the corners of his lips from rising. "Teach, teach." He hugged him from behind again, and gently held his delicate hand. He suddenly regretted that the bow was too rough. It was touching Gu Yan's hand. Gu Chongqing taught Gu Yan archery for the whole afternoon. Gu Yan and Gu Jiao were twins from the same mother, but they were worlds apart in terms of martial arts. Gu Chongqing taught for the whole afternoon, but Gu Yan couldn't hit the target even once. Gu Yan was furious, but he refused to admit that it was his fault. He exploded. "It's all because of this bow. What kind of bow did you make?" Gu Chongqing's lips curved slightly. "And it's the bow's fault. I didn't make it well. I'll make a new one for you tomorrow." Gu Yan turned his face away. Humph. The emperor recuperated in Bai Shui Alley. He ignored the court and the affairs of the world. After a few days of living in a paradise, his complexion improved a lot. Even his hair seemed to have increased. The old chancellor's cooking skills were excellent. The emperor felt that it was unfair for him to be the chancellor of the imperial college. He should have invited him to the palace to be the imperial chef. The busiest time of the day was at night. The courtyard was in chaos. A few children were pushing and shoving each other. The smell of food floated out of the kitchen. The sound of playful and angry scolding came from the alley. After being the emperor for a long time, he sometimes felt numb. But these days his heart was always touched. He was in the middle of it all. This was the Zhao country under his rule. It was the light of the thousands of families that he tried his best to protect. The emperor decided to return to the palace. He couldn't let the power of the court fall into the hands of others. However, the night before he returned to the palace, he suddenly had a high fever and fell ill. No one expected that such a mishap would happen. Gu Jiao went out to see a patient. Xiao Lulang and the old chancellor worked overtime overnight at the Hanlin Academy and the Imperial College, and Eunuch Wei himself was still a patient, so he couldn't help much. Gu Chongqing went to the Miracle Hall to invite a doctor. Empress Dowager Zhuang had just finished playing the leaf card, and was about to return to the palace when she heard Yuya, crying at the door. She walked over and asked, "What's wrong?" Yuya cried until she was out of breath. That? Your master is sick. I didn't take good care of him. I. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't want to care about the emperor's life or death, but this girl was crying so sadly. She frowned and went into the room to take a look. After all, she had sold Gu Jiao's medicine. Although she wasn't proficient in medicine, she could barely deal with the emergency. The emperor had a bad fever. His whole body was hot and his consciousness was blurred. "Go and get wine." Empress Dowager Zhuang ordered Yuya. Yes. Yuya hurried to the kitchen to get a jar of Huadiao wine. No one drank at home. It was a gift from the neighbors. Empress Dowager Zhuang dipped a cotton cloth in the wine and wiped the emperor's armpits and forehead. She had seen Jiao Jiao reduce little Jing Kong's fever in this way. However, Jiao Jiao didn't use strong wine, but the refined wine in her medicine box. Jiao Jiao called it alcohol. This method seemed to have some effect. After about half an hour, the emperor's fever gradually subsided. But after a while, it flared up again, and the fever was even worse than before. No matter how Empress Dowager Zhuang wiped it, it was no longer effective. The doctor from the medical hall arrived. It was Dr. Liu. He used acupuncture to reduce the emperor's fever, but the effect was minimal. He wrote a prescription and asked Gu Chongqing to go to the medical hall to get the herbs. Gu Chongqing directly boiled the herbs in the medical hall and brought them over. The emperor refused to drink. "You can leave," Empress Dowager Zhuang said lightly. Yes. The few of them left. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at the medicine bowl on the table, and then at the emperor who was in a mess. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes, as if she had made a very difficult decision. Then she went to the bedside with a look of disgust. The emperor's fever was fierce and his whole body was uncomfortable. In a daze, he seemed to hear someone calling him. Hung, or who was Hung? Was it him? Who was calling him? Hung, or it's time to take your medicine. The voice was gentle and warm. It was a voice he hadn't heard since he grew up. The emperor was really confused by the fever. He didn't remember that he had ascended the throne, and that there was Empress Dowager Zhuang who he hated the most in the world. He was the son of a palace maid. He was born lowly and was raised under concubine Jing's name. Concubine Jing gave birth to a beautiful sister for him. Her name was Ning'an. He liked his sister and also liked concubine Jing. Was that concubine Jing's voice? Was concubine Jing calling him? Concubine Jing was the best to him. Mother. What the emperor didn't know was that he was thinking of concubine Jing, but in the end, he called her mother. He grabbed Empress Dowager Zhuang's hand and held it for the whole night. Digression. Are there any more monthly tickets? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896/1120488009. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 312. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The emperor didn't calm down until the latter half of the night, and fell into a deep sleep. However, even in his sleep, he vaguely heard someone calling him Hong. One sound after another, each sound entered his ears. He also felt a hand so warm that it was burning hot, holding his hand tightly. When the emperor finally woke up, the sky was already bright. The emperor was a little confused and didn't know if it was a dream or reality. The familiar voice called Honger came again. The emperor slowly opened his eyes, and a figure appeared in his blurred vision. The owner of the figure was sitting cross-legged by the bed, holding his hand and looking at him with a kind gaze. Why does this person look so much like Little Magic Doctor's younger brother? Little Jinkong's little hand patted the back of the emperor's hand. He used the kind tone of Zhao Xiaobao's great-grandmother next door coaxing her great-grandson and called out, "Honger." The emperor shuddered and woke up from his drowsiness. The emperor recuperated for 7 days in Jishui Alley. The stitches were removed and the wound healed well. Eunuch Wei's injury also recovered well. It was just that he was old and his bone fractures healed slower than young people. However, the other injuries on his body didn't affect him much. Living in Jishui Alley was the most relaxing time of the emperor's life. Ever since he could remember, he knew that he was a lowly prince. Concubine Jing treated him very well, but he couldn't get rid of the shadow brought by his birth. After that, he lived alone and was suppressed by concubine Lu and the crown prince. He was always walking on thin ice. It wasn't easy for him to become the emperor, and he had Empress Dowager Zhuang to govern from behind the curtain. He didn't relax for even a moment. This time, it was a blessing in disguise and he enjoyed a few days of leisure. However, he couldn't really hide in Jishui Alley and be a hands-off boss for the rest of his life. He was the emperor of a country, and he carried the country of Zhao on his shoulders. After dinner, the emperor planned to return to the palace. The emperor announced to the public that he was recuperating in the temporary imperial residence. In order to confuse the enemy, the emperor specially transferred the imperial experts to the temporary imperial residence and surrounded it tightly. No one could guarantee that there wouldn't be a second assassination attempt, so it was best to be careful. At the same time that the emperor set out from Jadewater Alley, Eunuch Wei quietly headed to the temporary imperial residence. When the time came, he would accompany the emperor back to the imperial palace from the temporary imperial residence. Before the emperor boarded the carriage, Auntie Lu suddenly ran over shyly and handed him a pouch. Then, she covered her face and ran away. The emperor was speechless. Gu Chongqing escorted the emperor back to the palace. Sitting in the carriage on the way back, the emperor kept feeling that something was strange. He thought about it, but still couldn't figure out what was strange. It was not until he entered the imperial study that Eunuch reported to him. The Empress Dowager has fallen ill. She has been ill for several days, but she insisted on going to court. Today she finally couldn't take it anymore. She fainted in the Phoenix sedan on the way back to Rinshou Palace. The emperor was suddenly enlightened. He had been wondering what was strange. It turned out that the poisonous woman had not gone to Jade Water Alley to keep an eye on him these past few days. The emperor's first reaction was to rejoice. Even that poisonous woman would fall one day. His second reaction was a little worried. First, he was attacked by an assassin, and then the Empress Dowager fainted. It was not a small upheaval even when they were separated, let alone when they were linked together. It was easy to cause uneasiness among the people and panic in the imperial court. It didn't spread out, did it? The emperor asked with a frown. Eunuch said, no, the Rinshou Palace kept the news secret. They only said that the Empress Dowager was reading the memorials and focusing on the imperial court. No one was allowed to disturb her. The Empress Dowager fainted on the way back. I was secretly watching the Empress Dowager. If she fainted after entering the Rinshou Palace, I'm afraid that even I wouldn't be able to get the exact news. The Rinshou Palace was originally an iron bastion. After the Empress Dowager contracted leprosy, the people inside were replaced. Now even a fly couldn't get in. The emperor had a very bad impression of Empress Dowager Zhuang. He had a great prejudice against her. He didn't feel sorry for her, but he suspected her. How could it be so coincidental? I just came back today and she fell ill? Could it be that she was just pretending to confuse me? Eunuch didn't know. The emperor sneered. I just came back to the palace. I should pay my respects to my mother. The emperor went to the Rinshou Palace. Eunuch was the emperor's secret enemy. The emperor asked him to go back and not let anyone see him having any contact with him. As for Eunuch Wei, his arm was injured. The emperor asked him to go back to his room to rest. He only took a little eunuch with him. It was obvious that he didn't care much about Empress Dowager Zhuang. As soon as the emperor arrived at the gate of the Rinshou Palace, he was stopped by the palace masters. The Empress Dowager ordered that she won't see anyone, the palace master said. The emperor sneered. Does this include me, the monarch of the country? I want to know, when is there a place in the palace that I can't go? The palace master looked at him suspiciously. There has always been a place. Your Majesty, is this the first time you know? The emperor was speechless. The emperor had a toothache. That vicious woman was too powerful. Even he, the emperor, couldn't force his way in. Just as the emperor's face was about to turn black, Eunuch Qin came out with a horsetail whisk. He bowed to the emperor and said, Your Majesty, please forgive me. The Empress Dowager is your mother. She can't see anyone except you. Your Majesty, please. Eunuch Qin made a gesture of invitation. Eunuch Qin was Empress Dowager Zhuang's confidant. His every move represented Empress Dowager Zhuang. The palace master thought that Empress Dowager Zhuang really woke up and wanted to see the emperor, so he stepped aside and let him pass. Eunuch Qin led the way and led the emperor to Empress Dowager Zhuang's bedroom. The emperor thought that Empress Dowager Zhuang was fine, and was deliberately mystifying. However, when he saw the tightly closed phoenix bed, he had a bad premonition. Eunuch Qin came to the bedside and gently opened the curtain, revealing the pale Empress Dowager Zhuang on the phoenix bed. This Empress Dowager Zhuang was too strange. She always appeared majestically in front of people. Even in Bishui Alley, she was dressed in coarse hemp, and it couldn't hide the fierceness in her eyes. However, at this time, she was lying there quietly and her breath was drifting. She was indeed seriously ill. How could this be? The emperor was surprised. Eunuch Qin sighed. Your Majesty, do you really not know why the Empress Dowager is like this? These words were somewhat disgraceful. However, the emperor was too shocked and didn't pay attention to the words. Eunuch Qin meant that the Empress Dowager Zhuang's illness was related to him? How could it be? He hadn't done anything recently. Could it be that night? The emperor felt that it was impossible. This vicious woman couldn't wait to get rid of him. She wouldn't take care of him all night and wouldn't call him like Mother Jing. What he heard was just the voice in his dream. However, this couldn't explain why little Jing Kong called him Honger. If he didn't hear or see it, why would little Jing Kong imitate an adult and call him Hong? The emperor's mind was in a mess. He refused to accept this fact. It was not only because he refused to believe in Empress Dowager Zhuang's kindness, but also because he felt the long-lost warmth that night. In a daze, he seemed to feel that Mother Jing had returned. If it was really Empress Dowager Zhuang, didn't it mean that she had the smell of Mother Jing? This was blasphemy to Mother Jing. He couldn't accept it. He couldn't admit it. Eunuch Qin, the Empress Dowager's medicine is ready. A palace maid came in with a bowl of medicine. When she saw the emperor, she quickly bowed. Your Majesty. The emperor waved his hand impatiently. The palace maid put the bowl of medicine on the bedside table. The emperor's eyes unconsciously followed the bowl of medicine. Inadvertently, he caught a glimpse of a small iron box on the bedside table. It looked familiar. He didn't let himself think about it. At this time, Empress Dowager Zhuang was also awakened by the movement in the bedchamber. She was a person who had seen many storms. Seeing the emperor standing in front of her bed, her expression didn't change much. Empress Dowager, it's time to drink your medicine, Eunuch Qin said with a smile. Take it away. I won't drink it, Empress Dowager Zhuang said lightly. She was very weak. Even her eyes and tone had lost their usual sharpness. Eunuch Qin smiled and said, His Majesty is here to see you. Empress Dowager Zhuang said expressionlessly, I don't want him to see me. Since the incident, the two of them had stopped pretending to be a loving mother and filial son as long as they weren't in the throne room. The emperor stood tall and straight in front of the bed, looking down at her from above. At this moment, he really felt that she was old. Perhaps she wouldn't live for many years. Once she passed away, the power of the court would naturally return to his hands. Although he thought this, he said sarcastically, If Imperial Mother passes away like this, the throne room will be lonely in the future. There really won't be anyone to discuss the court with me. Empress Dowager Zhuang coldly stared at him. Unfilial son. Don't be delusional. I will definitely live longer than you. The emperor looked at her calmly. Empress Dowager Zhuang struggled to sit up. Eunuch Qin hurriedly went forward to help her, and handed the medicine to her. Empress Dowager Zhuang drank the bowl of bitter medicine in one breath. Not a drop was left. After the Empress Dowager drank the medicine, the emperor left Rinshou Palace. He wasn't in a hurry to return to his bedchamber. Instead, he went to the imperial study. He had someone call the crown prince and tested him on his homework. The emperor found that the crown prince's mathematics had improved greatly. Who taught you these questions? The crown prince paused and replied, Hanlin Academy. The emperor looked at the crown prince and said, I know that your mathematics was taught by Hanlin Academy. Which Hanlin official did I ask? The crown prince reluctantly opened his mouth. Xiaoxiuzhua. It's him? The emperor's eyes lit up and he smiled happily. I really didn't misjudge him. Your mathematics hasn't improved for many years. I thought it was because your aptitude was slow. Now it seems that it isn't. With an excellent teacher teaching you, you can still learn. How could the crown prince answer this? He simply couldn't refute it. He couldn't say that imperial father praised him wrongly, and that his aptitude was slow. In all fairness, the crown prince's aptitude wasn't bad. Although he couldn't compare to the emperor's eldest son, Ning Wang, he was far better than the other princes. However, the crown prince was biased. He didn't like mathematics, but the emperor valued it. The emperor originally just wanted to give it a try. He didn't expect it to be effective. He nodded with satisfaction. Not bad. Next time, let him come and teach you. The crown prince's expression changed. Imperial father. The emperor looked at him indifferently. What? Do you have a problem with it? The crown prince realized that he had lost his composure. He cupped his hands and said, This son is just curious. Why would imperial father let a Xiuzhua teach this son? Does imperial father not value this son? Letting a newly appointed Hanlin official teach the crown prince was a bit perfunctory no matter how he looked at it. The emperor put down the memorial in his hand, and looked at the crown prince with a frown. If I don't value you, why would I spend so much effort to teach you? You are the crown prince of a country. Can you not always care about other people's opinions? The crown prince stammered. This son doesn't care about other people's opinions. Then what is it? The emperor asked in a deep voice. The crown prince wanted to say something but hesitated. The emperor frowned. If you don't want to say it, then leave. The crown prince lowered his eyes. He looks too much like my younger cousin. This son will always think of my younger cousin who passed away early and feel sad. The emperor looked pensive. So you have to be sad to learn? The crown prince was startled. Wait, imperial father, you seem to have misunderstood me. The emperor grunted. Your historiography is also passable. In the future, let Xiao Xiuzhua teach you. The crown prince was going crazy. Was it not enough to see him once in a decade? Had he become twice in a decade? He did not want to see Xiao Liulong's face. The crown prince clenched his fists. Imperial father. The emperor had already made up his mind. He waved his hand and said, It's settled then. You can go back. Let little Qi come to my place tonight. He had not seen little Fatty for a few days. He missed him. The emperor was not an ordinary father. He was the emperor first, then the father. However, during these few days when he was recuperating in Bishui Alley, he kept seeing little Jing Kong in front of him. He especially wanted to be a father. Of course, he did not want to be a father to little Jing Kong. That child was too mischievous. He could not handle him. He wanted to find the sense of accomplishment of being a father from his little Fatty. After the crown prince left the imperial study, the emperor asked someone to summon King Ning. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/896421_896/112019570. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 313. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. Because of the hot weather, many girls suffered heatstroke in the past few days. Gu Jiao was so busy that her feet didn't touch the ground. She hadn't gone to the palace to see her grandaunt for a few days, so she didn't know about her grandaunt's illness. Yes, you don't need to take medicine. Just drink some water soaked in Hautuinia. Do you have Scottish fold root at home? If you don't, you can get some from the medicine boy. Gu Jiao finished treating a girl and made a record. Next, the door was pushed open, and Imperial concubine Rui Wang, who she hadn't seen for a long time, came in. Imperial concubine Rui Wang didn't cut the line this time. She stood in line for half an hour. She was still 5 months pregnant. Why are you here? Gu Jiao asked her to sit down. Imperial concubine Rui Wang's complexion was as rosy as ever. This pregnancy was really good, but her eyes were slightly red and swollen, as if she had just cried. Are you feeling uncomfortable? Let me see. Gu Jiao motioned her to reach out her hand. Imperial concubine Rui Wang shook her head. It's not me, it's Imperial concubine Jing. I went to see her yesterday, and she's not well again. As Imperial concubine Rui Wang spoke, her tears fell down. The original Imperial concubine Rui Wang didn't cry so much. It was only after she became pregnant that her tear ducts became more developed. She couldn't stop crying at the slightest thing. She herself didn't know why. Pregnancy hormones. Gu Jiao handed her a handkerchief. Imperial concubine Rui Wang wiped her tears and looked at Gu Jiao with red eyes. When will you be done today? Can you come with me to see Imperial concubine Jing after you're done? Gu Jiao called Dr. Song. Is there a doctor today? Dr. Song said. No, everyone is in the clinic today. Gu Jiao nodded. Well, I'll go out for a while. Help me look after her. Dr. Song responded, yes. Gu Jiao added, there are also medicinal herbs. Remember to ask little Jiangli to collect them later. Dr. Song said, I will. Gu Jiao went to the nunnery near the Puji temple with consort Rui Wang after she finished talking about the medical center. On the carriage, Gu Jiao learned that old concubine Jing had fallen ill after hearing about the assassination attempt on the emperor. She was the one who raised the emperor, and Princess Ning'an was her only daughter. The emperor was like her own son, so she was more worried than anyone else when something happened to him. Consort Rui Wang said, Imperial concubine dowager's body wasn't this weak in her early years. There was a snowstorm one winter, and the nunnery was too cold. Imperial concubine dowager's body was frozen, and she fell ill ever since. All these years, Imperial father has thought of many ways to nurse the old Imperial concubine's body, but none of them are very effective. Miss Gu, do you have a way to nurse the old Imperial concubine's body? Gu Jiao said truthfully, Imperial concubine dowager is getting on in years. She prioritizes her health, and treatment is secondary. There aren't many methods that can take immediate effect. Consort Rui Wang was disappointed. The two entered the nunnery. Old concubine Jing was lying on the bed in the meditation room. She had just fallen asleep, and there was the smell of calming incense in the room. A personal nanny dressed as a nun saw the two and bowed. Consort Rui Wang Miss Gu. Nanny Kai extinguished the calming incense in the stove while opening the window to ventilate the room. She didn't want the incense to reach the pregnant consort Rui Wang. Consort Rui Wang looked at old concubine Jing's pale face and said, Nanny Kai, why does Imperial concubine dowager seem even weaker than yesterday? Nanny Kai sighed. Imperial concubine dowager is worried about His Majesty. She can't sit or lie down and she can't sleep at night. She hasn't eaten anything since yesterday. This servant saw that she couldn't go on like this, so I secretly lit some calming incense. Consort Rui Wang was heartbroken. Consort Rui Wang was part of the Ning Prince's faction, and the Ning Prince was on the same side as Empress Dowager Zhuang. The emperor was doing his best to pull Empress Dowager Zhuang off the throne and help old concubine Jing take the position. However, this seemed to be a game between the emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang, and no one else was involved. Rui Wang and his wife had a good relationship with old concubine Jing. Nanny Kai brought over a chair for the two to sit down. Gu Jiao sat down by the bed and took old concubine Jing's pulse. Old concubine Jing hadn't been sleeping well. She opened her eyes as soon as Gu Jiao took her pulse. When she saw that it was Gu Jiao, a smile appeared on her pale face. Miss Gu, you're here. She then looked at consort Rui Wang, whose eyes were red, and said helplessly, I already said that I'm fine. Why did you come over again? You even troubled Miss Gu to come over? Can't you just stay at home and take care of the baby? I'll have to write a letter to Rui Wang later and tell him to keep you in check. Consort Rui Wang choked with sobs. His Highness wouldn't forbid me from coming. He's more worried about your health than I am. Sigh you too. Old concubine Jing shook her head, not knowing what to say. Gu Jiao finished taking old concubine Jing's pulse. Old concubine Jing looked at Gu Jiao and said, I'm fine. It's just that the weather is too hot. It's like this every summer. There's no need to worry, Miss Gu. From her pulse, old concubine Jing didn't seem to be suffering from any serious illness. She was just depressed, lacking in blood and qi, and weak in body. You can't not eat, Gu Jiao said. Nanny Kai hurriedly said, just listen, just listen. Miss Gu already said so. Why aren't you eating? Old concubine Jing smiled. It's too hot. I can't eat. Consort Rui Wang said. Old concubine, His Majesty has already returned to the palace. Old concubine Jing was startled. Really? Consort Rui Wang said. You can ask Miss Gu if you don't believe me. She wouldn't lie. Old concubine Jing's expectant gaze landed on Gu Jiao's face. Gu Jiao nodded. His Majesty has returned to the palace. Old concubine Jing asked nervously. Then, is he all right? I heard that he was attacked by an assassin and was injured. I don't know how serious it is. Gu Jiao answered truthfully. He's fully recovered. His Majesty is in good health. Old concubine Jing let out a sigh of relief. Ba. Good indeed. You've finally found your appetite, haven't you? This servant will have someone prepare some vegetarian dishes. Kai Mama's face was full of joy. She turned and said to Gu Jiao and Rui Wangfei, "If Rui Wangfei and Gu Gunyang don't mind, you can stay and eat with Tai Fei Nyang before leaving. I'm afraid that if you leave like this, Tai Fei Nyang will refuse to eat." Old concubine Jing glared at Granny Kai. "How can the children be used to the food in the nunnery?" Of course, Miss Gu." Consort Rui Wang winked at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao had no objection. She had never eaten vegetarian dishes from ancient times, and was quite curious about them. It turned out that Gu Jiao had overestimated the culinary skills of the nunnery. Little Jing Kong was basically a vegetarian at home. However, whether it was Gu Jiao or the old chancellor, the vegetarian dishes they made were not only varied in color, smell, and taste, but also full of childlike taste. Gu Jiao looked at the bowl of boiled tofu, boiled bean sprouts, shallot and cucumber in front of her. Even though she wasn't a picky eater, she still felt that this meal was too plain. Old concubine Jing had a good appetite, perhaps because she was really relieved. She ate half a bowl of rice, some vegetarian dishes, and drank a bowl of tofu soup. Consort Rui Wang really couldn't get used to the food. She grew up in luxury, so eating this kind of food was like eating dirt. She couldn't eat anymore after a few chopsticks. Old concubine Jing laughed at her. "I knew you couldn't get used to it." Consort Rui Wang cleared her throat. I have a bad appetite because I'm pregnant. It's not that I can't get used to it." Old concubine Jing laughed. After the meal, Consort Rui Wang chatted with old concubine Jing for a while. Old concubine Jing was worried that it would be too late, so she urged her to get on the carriage back to the capital with Gu Jiao. In the carriage, Consort Rui Wang said with heartache, "Old concubine has suffered too much. She has been eating such terrible food all these years. It's not that bad," Gu Jiao said. Consort Rui Wang said sadly, "Isn't that bad? It's so plain. It's so bland. She's so pitiful. She's the most pitiful woman of the late emperor." Gu Jiao paused. "Isn't the Empress Dowager the most pitiful?" Consort Rui Wang asked strangely. "What's so pitiful about the Empress Dowager? She's the head of the 6 palaces, and the overlord of the imperial court. She's so powerful that she can call the wind and summon the rain. She's even more glorious than father. There's nothing pitiful about her at all." Although Consort Rui Wang was from King Ning's line, she preferred the gentle and kind old concubine Jing as a granddaughter-in-law. Empress Dowager Zhuang was too domineering, ruthless, and unreasonable. Consort Rui Wang didn't dare to get along with her at all. She felt more at ease with old concubine Jing. But her grandaunt was the loneliest person. Gu Jiao didn't argue with Consort Rui Wang. Everyone had their own opinions, and there was no need to impose her will on others. She only needed to dote on her grandaunt more. She would dote on her grandaunt along with the other people's shares. As the carriage moved slowly, Consort Rui Wang gradually became sleepy. She leaned her head on Gu Jiao's shoulder and fell asleep. Gu Jiao was also a bit sleepy. She closed her eyes slightly and was about to take a nap when her ears suddenly twitched. She heard a very subtle and fast sound of something breaking through the air. She suddenly opened her eyes and raised her hand. She reached toward Consort Rui Wang and caught an arrow that had been shot in. Consort Rui Wang was awakened by the arrow. Her body trembled. "What's wrong?" She opened her eyes and saw a metal arrow shining with a cold light. She then looked at Gu Jiao's hand, which had caught the arrow. Cold sweat broke out all of a sudden. If it wasn't for Gu Jiao's quick reaction, she would have been her face turned pale in an instant. "Miss Gu." Gu Jiao's eyes turned cold. She grabbed the back of Consort Rui Wang's head with one hand and pulled her into her arms. Then, she turned her body sideways. Swish, swish, swish. 3 arrows flew past her long hair and nailed into the wall of the carriage that the two of them had been leaning against. Gu Jiao looked coldly at the window that had several holes in it. Then she turned the arrow in her hand and shot it out. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896426/1120171006. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. Chapter 314. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online can be found here. One of the masked assassins drew his sword, but when he got close to the carriage, he was hit in the shoulder by an arrow. The huge force behind the arrow sent him flying. He heavily hit a tree and fell to the ground in a sorry state. His head became dizzy and he lost consciousness. The carriage driver had been hit by an arrow and had already fallen. The horse was frightened and ran forward in a panic. This was a mountain road. If they kept running, they would fall off the cliff. Protect the princess consort. The accompanying guards shouted loudly. However, they were blocked by a wave of assassins that fell from the sky. The two sides fiercely fought. Sit tight. Gu Jiao let go of Imperial Consort Rui Wang and put her hand on the carriage's armrest. Hold on tight. Yes. Imperial Consort Rui Wang nervously nodded. Her heart was in her throat, but she didn't drop the ball at this critical moment and didn't cause trouble for Gu Jiao. She tightly held onto the armrest. Gu Jiao opened the curtain and walked out. She sat on the outer seat and held onto the reins with both hands. It wasn't that she didn't want to jump out of the carriage, but if she did, Imperial Consort Rui Wang's child might not be saved. So she could only think of a way to stop the carriage. They were getting closer and closer to the cliff. The horse rushed forward as if it had gone mad. Gu Jiao jumped onto one of the horses. Her legs clamped onto the horse's belly and she tightened her grip. The horse raised its front hooves and stood up, trying to throw Gu Jiao off. However, Gu Jiao tightly held onto it, and the strength in her hands didn't decrease at all. In the end, the horse was subdued. After a few hisses, it stopped while panting. At this time, the carriage was swept out because of inertia. The wheels were knocked off by the rocks and half of the carriage was hanging over the cliff. Creak. The carriage rocked on the edge of the cliff. Ah! Rui Wang's beautiful face turned pale. She was sitting in the half of the carriage that was hanging outside the cliff. If she was not careful, she would fall down with the carriage and be smashed to pieces. Don't move, Gu Jiao said. Rui Wang was very nervous, but when she heard Gu Jiao's words, she tried her best not to tremble. Gu Jiao carefully walked towards Consort Rui Wang. She gently lifted the curtain and extended her hand towards the terrified Consort Rui Wang. Don't be afraid, give me your hand. Imperial concubine Rui Wang tremblingly reached out her hand, but as soon as she moved, the carriage shook violently. She was so scared that she withdrew her hand. Her eyes were filled with fear and tears. I don't dare. Gu Jiao comforted her. It's fine, I've stepped on the carriage. You can slowly walk over. Imperial concubine Rui Wang looked at Gu Jiao's foot. Seeing that she really had one foot on the floor of the carriage, she gritted her teeth and gathered her courage to slowly move towards Gu Jiao. Every time she moved, she could feel the carriage slide down a bit. I'm scared. Tears streamed down her face. Gu Jiao softly said, Don't be afraid, I'll hold you. Imperial concubine Rui Wang looked at Gu Jiao's determined eyes and her heart filled with courage. She steeled her heart and took a step towards Gu Jiao. However, when Gu Jiao grabbed her fingertip, an arrow flew through the air and brushed past Gu Jiao's sleeve. Ouch! Gu Jiao gasped. Her palm slipped and Imperial concubine Rui Wang's fingertip slipped out. Imperial concubine Rui Wang fell back to the other side of the carriage, and the whole carriage fell down a lot. Gu Jiao grabbed the shaft of the carriage with one hand and pulled out a dagger with the other hand. She stabbed it into the rock on the slope. Imperial concubine Rui Wang felt that half of the carriage was hanging in the air. She looked at Gu Jiao desperately holding on to the carriage. Her body was about to be torn apart. Her tears flowed out of her eyes. Miss Gu, Let go. You'll fall down too. Gu Jiao did not let go. Come over. Grab my hand. Hold on tight. Swoosh. Another arrow hit the carriage and the huge impact caused a lot of pressure on Gu Jiao. However, this was not the most dangerous thing. The most dangerous thing was that there were more and more arrows. Several arrows were shot beside Gu Jiao and she did not know which one would hit her. Miss Gu, there's no time. Hurry up. Swoosh. Another arrow flew over and cut off a strand of Gu Jiao's hair. Imperial concubine Rui Wang clenched her teeth with tears in her eyes. She used all her strength and courage and threw herself at Gu Jiao. She hugged Gu Jiao's arm. Almost at the same time, Gu Jiao let go of the carriage shaft and grabbed onto Imperial concubine Wang's wrist. Without Gu Jiao's pull, the carriage fell rapidly down the cliff. Imperial concubine Rui Wang screamed and closed her eyes. She did not fall down. She was caught by Gu Jiao. Just as Gu Jiao was about to pull her up, several masked assassins charged towards Gu Jiao. In the blink of an eye, a long sword appeared out of thin air and pierced one of the assassins' heart. The assassins sensed that something was wrong, but they did not meet the enemy. Instead, they continued to charge towards Gu Jiao. The owner of the long sword flew up and blocked in front of Gu Jiao. The two sides fought fiercely. Gu Jiao hurriedly pulled Imperial concubine Rui Wang up. Imperial concubine Rui Wang was already scared out of her wits. After she came up, her body went limp and she fell into Gu Jiao's arms. She looked at the person and called out Prince Ning. Then her vision turned black and she fainted. So it was Prince Ning. Gu Jiao held Imperial concubine Rui Wang and turned to look at the other party. At this time, 3 of the assassins had already been killed by Prince Ning. The last one saw that the situation was bad and fled. Ning Wang ordered, "Catch him. I want him alive." Not far away, the guards of Prince Ning's residence chased after the assassin. Prince Ning wiped the blood on his sword with a handkerchief and put the long sword back into its scabbard. He came to Gu Jiao and Imperial concubine Rui Wang and asked, "Are you okay?" Gu Jiao raised her eyes to look at him. Prince Ning was dressed in an ink blue brocade robe with a palace sash around his waist. His posture was tall and straight, and he was tall and strong. His eyes were clear and bright, and he was full of righteousness. His facial features were 30% similar to Imperial concubine Zhuang, and 50% similar to the emperor. He was the prince that Gu Jiao had seen who was most similar to the emperor. Not only was his appearance similar, but his demeanor also had some of the emperor's shadow. Prince Ning was 26 years old this year, and the eldest crown prince was 3 years old. He had the heroic spirit of a 20-year-old and the steadiness of a 30-year-old. Gu Jiao withdrew her gaze and checked Imperial concubine Rui Wang's pulse. Imperial concubine Rui Wang's pulse was fine. She had only fainted because she was too anxious and frightened. Gu Jiao said, "It's okay. She'll be fine when she wakes up." Prince Ning breathed a sigh of relief. Prince Ning didn't ask about Gu Jiao's identity, but the look in his eyes was clearly not unfamiliar. He knew her. Gu Jiao looked at him strangely. She didn't remember them meeting before. Prince Ning smiled and said, "When there was an accident at the Ministry of Works, I went to the scene and saw Miss rescuing the injured." Gu Jiao made a no sound. That accident was too serious. She only paid attention to the injured people and didn't pay attention to the uninjured people. Prince Ning said, "Miss, you must have been frightened. Where are you and Imperial concubine Rui Wang going? I'll have someone send you there." The guards of Rui Wang's residence had all been killed by the assassins, and the carriage was also gone. Gu Jiao said, "We just came from the nunnery and were planning to go back." Prince Ning paused and asked, "Did Miss accompany Imperial concubine Rui Wang to visit Imperial concubine Dowager?" Gu Jiao nodded. Prince Ning frowned and hurriedly ordered the guards, "You guys quickly go to the nunnery and see if Imperial concubine Dowager is okay." "Yes." Several guards responded and hurried to the nunnery. Prince Ning said to Gu Jiao, "I'll have someone send you back." Gu Jiao suddenly stopped him. Why did Prince Ning appear here? Prince Ning was shocked by her sharp eyes. "Are you suspecting me?" Gu Jiao said seriously, "You appeared at the right time." Prince Ning smiled helplessly. "Miss, if I came a little later, you too would have died. If I wanted to harm you, I wouldn't have appeared. Besides, he glanced at imperial concubine Rui Wang, who was unconscious in Gu Jiao's arms. She is third prince's wife. Everyone knew that Rui Wang was Prince Ning's woman. Was Prince Ning crazy to attack his wife? Prince Ning said, "Father was worried about imperial concubine dowager, and asked me to go to the nunnery for him." This was the truth. He did go to the nunnery to visit imperial concubine Jing on the emperor's orders. Imperial concubine Jing was the emperor's adoptive mother. She would be worried and upset if news of the emperor's assassination spread. Not only did Rui Wang and her husband think of this, but the emperor also thought of imperial concubine Jing in the nunnery when he saw the sickly empress dowager. That was why he sent Prince Ning to go there for him. Gu Jiao made a sound of agreement. This matter was easy to confront, and Prince Ning shouldn't be lying. So the assassination had nothing to do with Prince Ning. Then who could it be? The other party seemed to have come for imperial concubine Rui Wang, but they couldn't rule out the possibility that they were here to kill her. Prince Ning gave the carriage to Gu Jiao and imperial concubine Rui Wang, then rode a horse to the nunnery. Gu Jiao escorted imperial concubine Rui Wang back to Rui Wang's residence. Before the two set off, Prince Ning sent a guard to the imperial palace to inform Rui Wang. Rui Wang was already waiting anxiously at the entrance of the residence. When he saw Gu Jiao carrying someone down, he strode forward and took imperial concubine Rui Wang from Gu Jiao's arms. He looked at imperial concubine Rui Wang, unable to hide the worry in his eyes. Is she all right? Gu Jiao said. It's nothing serious. She'll be fine after a nap. Imperial concubine Rui Wang had indeed fainted at first, but she woke up halfway and cried for a while. She was tired from crying and fell asleep for real now. Rui Wang scolded angrily. Those people are too much. They dared to commit murder in front of the emperor. Miss, you were frightened. Rui Wang obviously thought that those assassins were after imperial concubine Rui Wang. After all, Gu Jiao was just a lowly female doctor. Who would want to make things difficult for her? Goodbye. Gu Jiao turned to leave. Miss Gu, please wait. Rui Wang called out to Gu Jiao. What's the matter? Gu Jiao looked at him. Rui Wang did not put on airs as a prince. This was related to his family background and his temperament. He looked at Gu Jiao sincerely. Thank you, Miss Gu. For a prince of a country to express his gratitude to a female doctor was already rare and commendable. You don't have to thank me for what happened today. Perhaps imperial concubine Rui Wang was implicated by her. Rui Wang smiled bitterly. Even if what happened today didn't happen, I would still have to thank Miss Gu. Qianqian's personality is too straightforward, and she offends people easily. She doesn't have many friends, and she is actually very lonely in the residence. Miss Gu is her most treasured friend. I hope that Miss Gu can visit the residence more often. Friend. These two words were very unfamiliar. Just like how she did not have any family, she also did not have any friends. Okay. Gu Jiao said. Rui Wang smiled happily. Prince Ning's carriage was going to send Gu Jiao back. Gu Jiao went to the medical hall. Her hand was injured. There were wood shavings and gravel stuck into her flesh. She had to remove them one by one. She had just gotten off the carriage when she bumped into Lu Yixing, who had come to the medical hall to buy medicine. Lu Yixing came to buy medicine for Anu. Anu was coughing. He saw Gu Jiao's stiff right hand and asked Gu Jiao, "What's wrong with your hand?" Gu Jiao said, "It's just a small injury. It's not a big deal." Lu Yixing said, "I just saw the imperial guards of the capital government move out. They said that there was an assassination attempt in the suburbs. It was Prince Ning who reported it." Gu Jiao did not look surprised at all. Lu Yixing looked at her deeply. "You knew? You were there too?" Gu Jiao responded. She did not say anything else and went back to the courtyard to apply medicine. Lu Yixing looked at her back as she left and frowned. At night, Yuan Tang quietly sneaked into Lu Yixing's courtyard and smiled at Lu Yixing, who was weaving a bamboo basket. "It's so late. Cousin, did you call me over because you miss me? Did you do it?" Lu Yixing went straight to the point. "What did I do?" Yuan Tang was confused. Lu Yixing looked at him without blinking. His eyes were sharp. Don't play dumb. Yuan Tang frowned. I really don't understand what cousin is talking about. Lu Yixing's eyes fell on his waist. Where's the tassel on your jade pendant? Yuan Tang coughed softly. It's broken. I left it there. Lu Yixing said indifferently. Did you do something bad and got picked up by someone? Who did something bad? Wait. Yuan Tang realized something and widened his eyes. That girl came to see you? Did she ask you about the tassel? I was wondering why she suddenly guessed it was me. Cousin, how could you betray me? Lu Yixing didn't say that he didn't betray him. It was Gu Jiao who guessed it. Moreover, he didn't tell him in advance not to expose his tassel. He looked coldly at Yuan Tang. If you don't want people to know, don't do it. Yuan Tang clutched his chest. I'm hurt. My heart is hurt. Lu Yixing wasn't soft-hearted. Just because she found out what you did, you want to kill her to silence her? He didn't ask what Yuan Tang did, but it wasn't difficult to guess that it had something to do with the emperor's assassination a few days ago. Yuan Tang was completely confused. What do you mean? Did something happen to that girl? Lu Yixing said seriously. I said don't play dumb in front of me. Yuan Tang felt wronged. I didn't. In all honesty, she's someone you care about. How could I touch her? Lu Yixing frowned, lowered his eyes, and continued weaving the basket in his hands. She and I don't have the kind of relationship you think. Yuan Tang giggled. Okay. I'll do whatever you say. Lu Yixing looked at him again. It really wasn't you? Yuan Tang raised 2 fingers. I swear to God it wasn't me. I won't hurt her. Lu Yixing said seriously. You better remember what you said today. Yuan Tang looked helplessly at the sky. Remember, this is my promise to you. But, cousin, when will you also care about me? Lu Yixing glanced at him. Do you lack people who care about you? Yuan Tang. I don't lack people. His mother doted on him the most in the harem, and only had him as her only son. The king also thought highly of him. The position of Empress of the state of Qin had been vacant for many years. Once he completed his mission and returned in triumph, the king would make him the crown prince and his mother the empress. It could be said that he had everything a prince could have. But they're not my cousin. Yuan Tang sighed. Why can't my cousin treat me better? Gu Jiao quickly finished treating the injury on her hand. This small injury was not considered an injury to her. After returning home, she did what she needed to do as usual. However, there were still people with sharp eyes who noticed that something was wrong with her. She had just carried Yuya's folded clothes into her room when Xiao Lulang walked in behind her. He rarely took the initiative to enter her room, not to mention blocking her door like this. Gu Jiao turned around and blinked at him. What's wrong? Xiao Lulang didn't answer. Instead, he took a step forward and closed the door behind him. Gu Jiao's eyes lit up when she saw him enter her room in broad daylight, and close the door behind him, as if he was going to do something naughty. Xiao Lulang knew that she had misunderstood from the look in her eyes. He was silent for a moment and opened the door slightly, leaving a gap. Oh! Gu Jiao was disappointed. Xiao Lulang. Gu Jiao sat on the bed and buried her head in her clothes. Xiao Lulang walked in front of her. What's wrong with your hand? He asked. Nothing, Gu Jiao said. When she was fine, she would always moan for him to see and rub, but when something really happened, she would hide it from him. This time, Xiao Lulang wasn't easily dismissed by her. He forcefully grabbed her wrist with an aura that didn't allow her to refuse, as well as a warmth that only belonged to him in his palm. Gu Jiao's cold wrist was immediately scalded. Gu Jiao turned her head and stared at him blankly. Xiao Lulang sat down beside her and turned her hand over. His slender fingers gently pried open her fingers, revealing her palm that was full of wounds. The wounds weren't treated very carefully. You're fine treating other people's wounds. Why are you? Xiao Lulang was very angry and didn't know how to continue. Even if a doctor does not treat himself, he should not be fooled like this. Gu Jiao said, It's fine. You don't have to treat it. Where's the medicine? Xiao Lulang asked in a serious tone. Gu Jiao glanced at the medicine box on the table. It's there. Take it yourself. Let's see if you can open it. Xiao Lulang reached for it and opened it with a click. Gu Jiao. Oh, I forgot to lock it. Which one is the golden sore medicine? Xiao Lulang asked doubtfully. That's, Gu Jiao said. She glanced around and her eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. Where's her disinfectant? Where was her antibacterial ointment? How did it all work out? All work out. She didn't believe in heresy, so she took the medicine box and poured it on the bed. The bed was filled with little doo-doo. Thin Phantom, Classic 0 cents, and watery 3-in-1 Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao. What was wrong with little medicine chest? Where's her medicine? Where's the medicine? Where's the medicine? Is this medicine? Xiao Lulang was used to her having medicine that he had never seen before. He picked one up and tore it open. Gu Jiao felt like a string on her head had snapped. Xiao Lulang exclaimed, "It's so slippery." Don't say any more. There's an image. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1119917559. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 315. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more fully. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Xiao Lulang had known Gu Jiao for a long time. Ever since Gu Jiao stopped being stupid, she had never been so embarrassed. He had only touched her golden sore medicine, but she suddenly exploded. Not only did she snatch the small bag of golden sore medicine that he tore open, she even pounced over and pressed down on the bed full of golden sore medicine like little Hachi protecting its food. Her little face was red, and her eyes were moist. The corners of her eyes were slightly red, but it was unknown whether it was from anger or embarrassment. Of course it was from anger. How could this small medicine box be so heavy? How could it drop the ball at such a critical moment? Gu Jiao was so angry that the small voice in her mind was about to speak. "Don't touch the medicine here," she said fiercely. However, her angry appearance didn't have much deterrence. Xiao Lulang thought of Gu Yan. The twins usually had different personalities, but when they were angry, they were indeed siblings. Xiao Lulang looked at her calmly. This medicine is very expensive. I don't need such good medicine. There's a bottle of wound medicine on Grandaunt's table. Take that." Gu Jiao was confused by the small medicine box. She had forgotten that Xiao Lulang wouldn't be able to recognize these things at all. On the contrary, her appearance made Xiao Lulang have a strange interest in this slippery little thing. Forget it, it was her medicine. He would listen to her how she wanted to use it. He couldn't steal it back to study it just because he was curious. When Xiao Lulang went to Grandaunt's room to get the wound medicine, Gu Jiao had already cleaned up the scene. The small medicine box seemed to have suffered a heavy blow that it shouldn't have. It was thrown on the table in disdain, and was as quiet as a chicken. Xiao Lulang applied the medicine on Gu Jiao. It didn't look like an ordinary scratch. He asked, "How did you get this?" In the past he would never ask about it, but now that he had casually asked about it, he was naturally stunned for a moment. Gu Jiao rolled her eyes and said without a change in her expression, "Just loosening up my muscles and bones. I don't fight." Xiao Lulang said indifferently, "You went to the nunnery to stretch your muscles and bones?" Gu Jiao looked at him in shock. As Xiao Lulang applied the medicine for her, he said unhurriedly, "You have good sandalwood on your body and purple moss on the soles of your feet. This kind of moss can only be found on the road from the temple to the nunnery." Gu Jiao. His persona had collapsed again. Consort Rue Wang came to visit, and invited me to the nunnery for a visit. On the way back, I met a few rascals and taught them a lesson. Gu Jiao avoided the main point and talked about the trivial. Hearing that she had been invited to the nunnery by consort Rui Wang, Xiao Lulang frowned. Was it the nunnery near the Puji temple? Yes. Gu Jiao nodded. Xiao Lulang asked again. You went to see consort Jing Dowager? Yes. Gu Jiao nodded again. She didn't ask how he knew that consort Jing Dowager lived in the nunnery. Xiao Lulang suddenly fell silent. Gu Jiao looked at him. Her injuries really were fine. Xiao Lulang finished applying the last wound and said to her, Don't go to the nunnery for a visit in the future. Why? Gu Jiao didn't understand. Xiao Lulang thought for a moment and said, It's better to have less contact with the imperial family. Gu Jiao, oh. On the other side, King Ming returned to the palace to report to the emperor after visiting consort Jing Dowager. Mother, are you all right? The emperor asked worriedly. King Ming said, Consort Jing Dowager was sad for a few days when she heard that you were attacked by an assassin. Today, third sister-in-law went to visit her and said that you had recovered and returned to the palace. Consort Jing Dowager was relieved. She's fine now. The emperor let out a long breath. I knew she would be worried. Third brother and his wife are very considerate. King Ming said, Father, there's one more thing. The emperor looked at him. What is it? King Ming cupped his hands. Third sister-in-law was attacked on her way back. The emperor frowned. Was she hurt? King Ming shook his head. No, she was just a little frightened. Third sister-in-law and the baby in her belly are both fine. Third brother's wife is blessed. The emperor couldn't help but sigh when he thought of consort Ning, who had just had a miscarriage. First brother, second brother, and third brother were all married, but they didn't even give birth to an imperial grandchild. It would be a lie to say that he didn't regret it. However, having children was fate and couldn't be forced. Did you catch the assassin? The emperor asked in a low voice. King Ming said with shame. It wasn't easy to catch one alive, but he took poison and killed himself before we could interrogate him. The emperor thought for a moment. Go investigate the hostage of Chen State. King Ming said thoughtfully. Father, you suspect him? He's still in the limelight for assassinating you. He wouldn't do it again so soon, would he? The emperor said, he has a criminal record. He's very suspicious. Besides, we didn't get any concrete evidence last time. We only killed one of his aides. If it's really him this time, we can't let him get away with it no matter what. King Ming hesitated for a moment before cupping his hands. Yes, I'll go investigate right away. After King Ming left the imperial study, the emperor summoned Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei's left arm and neck were still in bandages, but he couldn't stay idle and came to work early in the morning. He bowed and said, Your Majesty, I remember that there's 1,000-year-old ginseng in the storehouse. Send it to concubine Jing to nourish her body. Eunuch Wei hesitated. Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager is also sick. Do you think? The emperor interrupted him coldly. Do you think what? Send the ginseng to her? Half of Zhao State is hers. Her Renshou palace won't lack ginseng. Eunuch Wei sighed and said, Yes, I'll go get it. I'll send it to concubine Jing tonight. The emperor added, Also call Eunuch He here. Recently, I've been in trouble one after another. I'm worried that the other party won't give up and will plot against my mother. I'm going to send some secret guards to my mother. Sigh. If you were half as attentive to the Empress Dowager as you are to concubine Jing, your relationship with her wouldn't be like it is now. Eunuch Wei had a deep prejudice against Empress Dowager Zhuang in his early years. But in the past few days when he was recuperating in Bishui Alley, he saw how Empress Dowager Zhuang interacted with the little miracle doctor's family, how she interacted with the neighbors, and even how she took care of the emperor that night. He felt that Empress Dowager Zhuang might not be as they thought. Of course, this didn't mean that Empress Dowager Zhuang was a good person, but at least she wasn't that vicious. There was an irreconcilable conflict between the emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang. As long as Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't give up on interfering with the court, the emperor and her couldn't be reconciled. Eunuch Wei didn't think that the emperor had to reconcile with her to be satisfied, but could the emperor find another way to deal with her? Empress Dowager Zhuang was clearly amenable to coaxing but not coercion. Your Majesty, What's wrong with coaxing her? Lower her vigilance, numb her emotions, coax her until she's dizzy, and then close the net in one fell swoop. Isn't that great? As a loyal servant, Eunuch Wei felt that he needed to share his master's worries. He went to the warehouse to find the 1,000-year-old ginseng and sent it to old concubine Jing. Then he found a box of valuable snow lotuses that weren't 1,000-year-old ginseng and sent them to Empress Dowager Zhuang, saying that it was a gift from the emperor to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Gu Jiao was tired during the day, so she slept soundly at night. Xiao Luleng wasn't so lucky. He had been busy all day, but for some reason he felt very hot inside. Now that life at home wasn't so bad. The original cloth curtain was replaced with a gauze curtain, which was actually very breathable. The children in Little Jing Kong, who were so afraid of heat, all fell asleep. Xiao Luleng tossed and turned in bed, and didn't fall asleep until the latter half of the night. However, he didn't sleep for long before he had an indescribable dream. Everything in the dream was so real that it almost killed him. But he hadn't really experienced it, so he didn't know how to do it and didn't know how to do it, so he woke up in a daze. After waking up, Xiao Luleng secretly scolded himself for being a beast. How could he do that to her in the dream? Xiao Luleng got up and copied the Buddhist scriptures. He didn't lie back on the bed until he was completely calm. But it was destined to be a night of many dreams. He had another dream, but it wasn't about Gu Jiao, but about himself when he was young. In the dream, he was about the same age as little Jing Kong. He was a little bean, walking on a small path paved with stones and entering a courtyard full of beauties. He was too young at that time, so he didn't know many people in the palace. A kind voice sounded above his head. Do you want to eat it? It's very delicious chestnut cake. He took a piece of chestnut cake, and after eating half of it, his eyes went black and he collapsed. Xiao Luleng woke up with a start. This was the memory of being poisoned by Empress Dowager Zhuang when he was 4 years old. This memory had long been blurred, but subconsciously he would reject things made of chestnuts. Maybe it was the first dream that stimulated his mind, and it actually made him recall the dusty memory of his childhood. He didn't dream of that person's face, but he saw the person's hand clearly. It was a left hand, and there was a mole on the left wrist. There was no mole on his Grey-Tant's wrist. The person who poisoned him that year was not Empress Dowager Zhuang. Digression. There will be more chapters. Is there a monthly ticket? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111986976. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 316. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Xiao Luleng didn't sleep well that night, so he woke up 15 minutes later than usual the next day. In just 15 minutes, he was informed that Gu Jiao had left. Gu Jiao had gone to visit her grandaunt. Just like how the emperor would wonder if concubine Jing was also sick when he saw Empress Dowager Zhuang, Gu Jiao also remembered how her grandaunt had stayed up all night to watch over the emperor when she saw concubine Jing fall ill. Her grandaunt was old, and staying up all night was very harmful to her health. Gu Jiao didn't just have Empress Dowager Zhuang's token, she also had the emperor's token. She casually took out a token, stunning the guards outside the palace. No. Didn't you have the Renshou Palace's token a few times ago? How come it's the Pure Flowers Palace's token now? Is it wrong? Gu Jiao flipped through her pockets and took out another token. The guard took it and almost fainted when he saw it. This was the previous emperor's token. That one seemed to have been given to her by her grandaunt. Gu Jiao flipped through her pockets again. There seemed to be more. The guard's face paled. Stop flipping. Who knows what you'll find later? Hurry up and go in. Hurry up and go in. The guard returned the token to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao went to Rinshou Palace. Eunuch Qin was surprised to see her, but he also felt relieved. I am Miss Gu, you're finally here. This servant didn't know what to do if you didn't come. What's wrong? Is Grandaunt sick? Gu Jiao asked when she saw Eunuch Qin's worried expression. Eunuch Qin sighed and nodded. She's been sick for a few days, but she refused to tell anyone about it. She also refused to let this servant invite Miss Gu over. The Empress Dowager said it was a small illness, and she'll be fine after some rest. Small illnesses at this age were difficult to bear and dangerous. Gu Jiao hurried to her great-aunt's bedchamber. Empress Dowager Zhuang just caught a cold from overworking. However, just as Gu Jiao said, an illness at this age was not an illness. It could take one's life at any time. Empress Dowager Zhuang lay withered on the phoenix bed. It was as if half of her vitality had been sucked out overnight. Great aunt. Gu Jiao stepped forward and placed the food box on the table. Then, she sat by the bed and began to take her great aunt's pulse. Empress Dowager Zhuang weakly looked at Gu Jiao, and then looked at Eunuch Qin behind Gu Jiao. She rolled her eyes and said, "Who told you to call him here?" Eunuch Qin was embarrassed. Gu Jiao pulled up the quilt for her great-aunt and said, "Eunuch Qin didn't call me. I came by myself." Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. "Have you taken your medicine this morning?" Gu Jiao asked. Eunuch Qin said, "Not yet. The imperial physician instructed me to drink it after the meal, but the Empress Dowager..." Empress Dowager Zhuang looked coldly at Eunuch Qin. "Do you think your life is too long?" He even dared to complain about her. Eunuch Qin shrunk his neck resentfully. Gu Jiao said, "I brought food." Yes. Eunuch Qin hurried to the table and opened the food box that Gu Jiao brought. A familiar fragrance of chopped green onions floated out. It was egg drop millet porridge, brown sugar glutinous rice cake, pea pudding, and some homemade pickled dried fruits. The pea pudding was made by Yao Shi. The other three were made by the old chancellor, and only half of the sugar was added. Empress Dowager Zhuang originally didn't have much of an appetite, but after taking a bite, she couldn't stop. Gu Jiao didn't let her eat too much. She had Eunuch Qin take the food away after a few chopsticks. Empress Dowager Zhuang smacked her lips with hidden bitterness. "Aijiao is sick and you don't let Aijiao eat until she is full." Gu Jiao said, "You also need to leave room for medicine." She didn't want to drink medicine. She wanted to eat until she was full. After about half an hour, Gu Jiao had someone bring the medicine. Gu Jiao tasted it first. It was the right medicine and the medicine was very mild. Empress Dowager Zhuang had a look of refusal. Gu Jiao took out 3 candied fruits. "Originally, I could have eaten 3. Empress Dowager Zhuang curled her lips. Gu Jiao said, "These 3 are extra." Before she finished speaking, Empress Dowager Zhuang picked up the medicine bowl and gulped it down. Then, under everyone's stunned gaze, she decisively took away the 3 candied fruits. It rained for a while last night and cooled down the heat. Today the sky was clear and it was very suitable for a walk outside. "Great aunt, I will accompany you to the imperial garden," Gu Jiao said to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang was too lazy to move. Gu Jiao said, "I will come to see you tomorrow." Empress Dowager Zhuang deal. The group went to the imperial garden. Gu Jiao liked to sit in Empress Dowager Zhuang's Phoenix sedan, but Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't want to sit because it was stuffy. Therefore there was a very strange scene in the palace. Empress Dowager Zhuang held Eunuch Qin's arm and walked slowly in front. Gu Jiao sat in Empress Dowager Zhuang's Phoenix sedan, and followed with a look of enjoyment. Her small head was shaking. All the palace people were speechless. The group went to the imperial garden. There was a pavilion in the imperial garden, and a large area of shade. Empress Dowager Zhuang and Gu Jiao looked at the shade at the same time. Eunuch Qin understood and hurriedly had people bring in tables and chairs. After Empress Dowager Zhuang and Gu Jiao sat down, Eunuch Qin put tea and fresh fruits on the table. The snacks were for Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was at the age of growing and got hungry quickly. Gu Jiao picked up a piece of osmanthus cake and ate it carefully. She was sweating while eating. Empress Dowager Zhuang gave a look to the palace people. The palace people hurriedly took a fan behind Gu Jiao and gently fanned her. The breeze was gentle, and the garden was full of fragrance. It was the same scenery, but because there was a different person, Empress Dowager Zhuang also had a different state of mind. Eunuch Qin looked at Gu Jiao, who was eating snacks, and then looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang, who was quietly drinking tea. What did Empress Dowager Zhuang need? In fact, she just needed companionship. Miss Gu didn't need to do anything. She just needed to accompany Empress Dowager Zhuang. And Empress Dowager Zhuang would be very happy. It was also at this moment that Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't hate the palace. However, peaceful moments were always short. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't enjoy the leisure for long before she was disturbed by an uninvited guest. I thought it was mother from afar. When I came over, it was really her. Yes, the uninvited guest was the emperor. Empress Dowager Zhuang's face instantly darkened. The emperor strode over and bowed to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Son pays respect to mother. And you bastard. Empress Dowager Zhuang rolled her eyes. She didn't want to have a good moment with Jiao Jiao to be interrupted by this annoying guy. The emperor was not alone. Prince Ning was with him. Prince Ning also bowed to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Imperial grandmother. Empress Dowager Zhuang finally showed a good face to Prince Ning. Yes. She responded. Eunuch Qin and others bowed to the two of them. Your Majesty. Greetings, Your Highness. Prince Ning looked at Gu Jiao next to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Gu Jiao was eating half of the snacks and there was still foam at the corner of her mouth. She raised her head slightly and nodded to greet the Emperor and Prince Ning. Your Majesty, Prince Ning. Her expression was cold, but the foam at the corner of her mouth was too eye-catching. She looked like a little adult. Prince Ning wanted to laugh. The Emperor didn't mind that Gu Jiao didn't kneel to greet the Emperor and Prince Ning. Prince Ning naturally didn't mind. Eat your food, Empress Dowager Zhuang said to Gu Jiao. Oh. Gu Jiao continued to eat. Empress Dowager Zhuang and the Emperor didn't expect that Gu Jiao could accurately call out Prince Ning's name. They only thought that she knew Prince Ning's identity because she heard the palace people greet him. The Emperor automatically ignored the disdain on Empress Dowager Zhuang's face. He walked over and sat down on the other side of Gu Jiao, facing Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't even give him a look. The Emperor looked at the snacks on the plate and said, "What's so good about osmanthus cakes? Are the cooks of Renshou Palace so negligent? If Imperial Mother lacks cooks, I can send a few over to Imperial Mother." Then, without waiting for Empress Dowager Zhuang to refute, he said to Gu Jiao, "I have a new cook from Jiangnan. His lotus cakes are delicious, better than this." He acted like a human trafficker who wanted to kidnap a child. Empress Dowager Zhuang said angrily, "Jiao Jiao doesn't like lotus cakes." When Prince Ning heard this, he looked at Gu Jiao in astonishment. The Emperor continued to guide Gu Jiao patiently. Then there are other crisps. The desserts made by that chef are very delicious. See what Jingkong and the others like to eat and bring some back for them. These words directly hit Gu Jiao's heart. Gu Jiao didn't have much obsession with food, but her younger brothers were all foodies. Empress Dowager Zhuang felt a sense of crisis and used her unique skill. Jiao Jiao is sick. Jiao Jiao wants to treat Ai Jiao's illness. The Emperor said, "What a coincidence. I am injured." The little magic doctor came just in time. "By the way, Eunuch Wei, I don't know how his arm is." Eunuch Wei, "My arm is very good." The Emperor glared at him like a knife. Eunuch Wei said with a strong desire to live, "Ouch, it hurts. It hurts so much." Gu Jiao, Prince Ning, Empress Dowager Zhuang. The Emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang's murderous aura filled the entire imperial garden. It was as if they were going to draw their swords in the next second. Gu Jiao looked at her grandaunt and then at the Emperor. "How about a rock-paper-scissors game?" "Huh." Everyone laughed. "Girl, you are still too naive. Do you know who these two are? One is the Emperor of Zhao country, and the other is the uncrowned overlord. Would they play rock-paper-scissors with you?" Ha ha. The next second, everyone was slapped in the face. The two top bosses of Zhao country actually rolled up their sleeves and played rock paper scissors in the imperial garden. The result was obvious. Empress Dowager Zhuang won for sure. The emperor gritted his teeth. 3-3 2 out of 3 wins. The emperor gritted his teeth again. 5-5 3 out of 5 wins. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at him as if he was an idiot. Ijia has already won against you 3 times in a row. The emperor, who had 10,000 arrows in his heart. Jade Water Alley's #1 gambling god, was not casually called. Empress Dowager Zhuang had never lost in rock-paper-scissors games. Humph. Empress Dowager Zhuang valiantly brought Gu Jiao back to Rinshou Palace. The emperor's mouth fiercely twitched. Cough. Prince Ning cleared his throat and asked, "Father Emperor, that Miss Gu is? She is my benefactor." The emperor sighed as he spoke. He was still wringing his hands from losing to Empress Dowager Zhuang. She cured my illness. This assassination attempt was also thanks to her help. Also, the emperor paused and said, the glutinous rice mortar and the bellows were also made by her. Prince Ning's handsome face flashed with surprise. Oh, it's actually her? That is to say, she is the daughter of Marquis Ding and Fu? There were some things that the common people did not know, but they were spread throughout the imperial palace. Although Prince Ning had long established another residence outside the palace, he often went in and out of the imperial palace. He was not unfamiliar with Gu Jinyu falsely claiming credit for the real Miss Gu. Prince Ning's face was filled with realization. Sun saw her at the scene of the accident. She was saving a patient. In order to save a patient, she was almost caught in the explosion. Military officer Gu bravely stepped forward. No wonder she was so familiar with military officer Gu. It turns out they were siblings. Sun heard that she grew up among the common people, but I did not expect her to have such ability. The emperor said. Zhen once asked where her master was. Zhen originally wanted to ask her master to leave the mountain, but her master had already passed away. Prince Ning regretfully sighed. That's right. What about the matter I asked you to investigate? The emperor asked. Prince Ning asked the emperor tomorrow about the assassination attempt on consort Rui Wang. He had entered the palace today to report the results to Father Emperor. He said, Sun has investigated. It was not a hostage from the country of Chun. It wasn't him. The emperor was skeptical. Prince Ning nodded. The hostage from the country of Chun just lost a great general. He wouldn't dare to stir up trouble again in such a short time. He and his subordinates have been very well behaved in the palace these days. The emperor's gaze turned cold. If it wasn't a hostage from the country of Chun, then there is only one possibility. Prince Ning looked at him. Father, are you suspecting? The emperor said coldly. Is there a need to suspect? It's obvious that it was her. Zhen understands that she is your grandmother and your great-aunt. You are more or less on her side, but other than her, no one else could have done this. Prince Ning was caught between the emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang, so he was in a difficult position. Of all the princes in the palace, only he was in such an awkward position. Rui Wang is on good terms with Sun, and grandmother dotes on him. Rui Wang was part of Prince Ning's line. Empress Dowager Zhuang had no reason to deal with the couple. The emperor snorted coldly. Have you forgotten how close old Third and his wife were to old concubine Jing? She was jealous of old concubine Jing. She could not bear to see anyone treat old concubine Jing well. Prince Ning, however, shook his head. Grandmother would not do such a thing. The emperor faintly said. Have you forgotten how she poisoned Aheng that year? If the palace had not discovered it early, Aheng would have already died. The emperor had never said a single bad word about Empress Dowager Zhuang in front of the crown prince. On the contrary, he did not have any qualms in front of Prince Ning. How could Prince Ning not understand that this was a form of respect, and also a form of probing? The emperor was probing his feelings, as well as his filial piety and sincerity. Prince Ning persisted, saying, It was not grandmother. Sun is certain. The emperor was unhappy. How can you be certain? Prince Ning cupped his hands, because when third sister was attacked by an assassin, the daughter of Marquis Ding An's manor was also present. She nearly died to the assassin's arrow. Grandmother dotes on her, and would not allow anyone to harm her. The emperor frowned and looked at Prince Ning. Why did you not say this yesterday? Prince Ning said with shame. Sun did not know of her relationship with grandmother and father emperor. I thought that she was just a normal female doctor, and was not worth mentioning. No matter how deep the emperor's prejudice against Empress Dowager Zhuang was, he had to admit that Empress Dowager Zhuang truly doted on the young divine doctor. She would not choose to assassinate the young divine doctor while he was present. But if it was not the hostage of Qin country, nor was it Empress Dowager Zhuang, who else could it be? Who would target imperial concubine Rui Wang? Thinking of something, Prince Ning said. Father Emperor, since the young divine doctor's identity is so special, could it be that the assassin yesterday was not targeting third sister, and was instead targeting her? Targeting the young divine doctor? The emperor's expression immediately became cold. It was so cold that it was a little frightening. It was even more frightening than when Prince Ning had told him that imperial concubine Rui Wang had been attacked. Prince Ning was secretly shocked. Was the daughter of Marquis Ding An's manor that important to Father Emperor? More important than his own daughter-in-law and the unborn imperial grandson? Gu Jiao ate lunch at Renshou Palace before leaving. Right before leaving, Gu Jiao asked Empress Dowager Zhuang, Grandaunt, have you heard of Xianle residence? Empress Dowager Zhuang frowned and thought for a while. I can't remember. Empress Dowager Zhuang's memories had been restored, but only the majority had been restored. There were still some memories that were missing. Because of this, Empress Dowager Zhuang could not guarantee that she had never heard of it, or that she had forgotten after hearing it. Jiao Jiao, do you want to inquire about this? Empress Dowager Zhuang asked. Gu Jiao replied. No, just casually asking. Grandaunt does not need to inquire. So as to avoid inadvertently alerting the enemy, for Xianle residents to know about the Qin country's assassination, it meant that Yuan Tang had some dealings with Xianle residents. Yuan Tang knew the emperor's whereabouts like the back of his hand, so he must have spies in the palace. But whether the spies were arranged by Yuan Tang himself or through Xianle residents, it was unknown. When the limelight passed, she would go to Xianle residence again. Gu Jiao returned to the medical hall. Lu Yixing was also there. He waited for a long time. Xiao Sanzi whispered. He made a special trip to wait for you. I know. Gu Jiao nodded and called Lu Yixing into the examination room. Lu Yixing said, I'm not here to ask for medical advice. I'm here to tell you that yesterday's assassination has nothing to do with Yuan Tang. Okay. Gu Jiao nodded. Lu Yixing was stunned. If you don't ask me, how do I know it has nothing to do with him? Evidence? Proof? Gu Jiao said. You said it has nothing to do with him. I believe you. That was all. There was no need for evidence and no need to explain other reasons. Lu Yixing suddenly choked. I believe you. Ever since the destruction of the Lu family, he had never heard these words again. Why? Why did she believe him? Why did she never doubt him? Gu Jiao did not speak. He got up and left. But when he had already walked out, he paused. You be careful. Gu Jiao watched his departing figure, and thought of the dream she had when she returned to the Marquis's mansion. Why did I believe you? Because I only gave you a bowl of water, but you collected my corpse and buried my bones. Digression. Lu Yixing's dream. Chapter 178 Cheating. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111962433. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 317. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. In the afternoon, a soldier came to the barracks to pass on a message for Dr. Liu. There seems to be a problem with the golden sore medicine in the barracks. Dr. Liu would like to invite you over. This was a big matter. The medicine shipped to the barracks was not just a few bottles, but hundreds and thousands of bottles. If something went wrong, thousands of lives would be lost. I'll go too, the second boss said. Gu Jiao nodded and got on the carriage with the second boss to the barracks. Medical officer Liu waited anxiously in the military tent for a long time. When he finally saw Gu Jiao lift the curtain and enter, he took a few steps forward and said, "Miss Gu, quickly come and take a look." After I gave him the golden wound medicine from your medical hall, he became like this. As Dr. Liu spoke, he brought Gu Jiao to a wooden bed for a wounded soldier. This bed was very narrow, just enough for a patient to lie down. The wounded soldier was about 17 or 18 years old. His leg was injured, but his face was red and swollen. He had fainted and his breathing was not smooth. Gu Jiao took out a stethoscope from the small medicine box and listened to his heart rate. She then unbuttoned his clothes and checked his body. Did his face become red and swollen and he fainted after using the golden sore medicine? Yes, Dr. Liu said. He accidentally cut his leg with a sword. I saw that the injury was not serious, so I didn't stitch him up. I only cleaned it up and applied some golden sore medicine. But in the time it took me to go to the toilet, he fainted on the ground and became like this. He doesn't have it on him. Gu Jiao paused and closed his clothes. Let me see the golden sore medicine he used. Dr. Liu handed the half-used bottle of golden sore medicine to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao first sniffed it, then dipped it in a little and smeared it on her injured palm. Aya. The second boss did not have time to stop her. This girl was too fast. Gu Jiao did not have any adverse reactions. Therefore, there was nothing wrong with the golden sore ointment. Could it be that he's allergic to something? The second boss asked. It doesn't look like it, Gu Jiao said. Did you eat something bad? The second boss asked again. It doesn't look like it either. Gu Jiao's gaze fell on the patient's swollen face. She thought of something and went to the patient's head. She bent down and untied the patient's headband. She began to carefully examine the patient's hair and scalp, not letting go of a single hair stubble. I found it. It's here. Gu Jiao pushed aside the patient's hair near the Baihui acupoint. The second boss and Dr. Liu came over and took a closer look. It was a small red bag. The second boss said, "This is..." Gu Jiao took out a blade from the small medicine box. It's a poisonous bug. A very powerful bug. The weather was hot. The Tiger Mountain Barracks was located at the foot of the mountain, so poisonous insects and snakes were not rare. Every year, many soldiers were bitten, but it was the first time Medical Officer Liu had encountered one that had bitten into his hair. He blushed with shame. He was careless and misunderstood the medical center. Gu Jiao treated the patient's wound and applied anti-inflammatory and anti-allergic ointment. The poisonous bugs coming down from the mountain are very powerful. You have to be careful in the future. Speaking of this, Medical Officer Liu sighed. In fact, I often remind them, but you don't know. This group of men are very afraid of the heat. They would rather sleep naked at night and be bitten by mosquitoes than hang a curtain. Thank you for today's matter, Miss Gu. If you hadn't come in time, I don't know what would have happened to this patient. After thanking her, Medical Officer Liu did not forget to apologize. The second boss said it was okay. The matter was solved. Gu Jiao and the second boss should leave. I'm going to the outhouse. You get on the carriage first. The second boss said to Gu Jiao. Okay. Gu Jiao walked out of Medical Officer Liu's tent and walked out of the barracks. When she passed by an open tent, as if it was attracted, her eyes could not help but look at the tent. With just a glance, her footsteps stopped. It was actually a small armory. There were all kinds of cold weapons inside. And among these cold weapons, there was a majestic red tasseled spear. It was a little longer than the one the old Marquis bought and gave to her from the martial arts school. The material was a little heavier, but the spearhead was really beautiful, with a sharp cold light. The red tasseled spear was also bright, like the blood of the enemy. Some factors in Gu Jiao's bones began to stir again. She walked in and took the red-tasseled spear. It was heavy and thick. She casually practiced a few moves. Every move was full of murderous intent. She liked it so much. She fondled the red-tasseled spear in her hand. Wow. Who is it? Accompanied by a dignified voice, the old marquis walked in with his hands behind his back and a solemn expression. When he saw that the person who broke into the tent was Gu Jiao, his eyes turned cold. What is a woman like you doing in a place like this? Put it down. Is this something you can touch? Gu Jiao hesitated for a moment. She curled her lips and unwillingly put the spear back. The old marquis looked at her resentful expression, and his brows wrinkled. Ah, she felt wronged? Didn't he warn her not to come to this kind of place? Why did you come to the military camp again? The old marquis asked in a cold voice. There's something going on in the medical center. Gu Jiao said. The old marquis coldly said. If you want to be a female doctor, then obediently stay in the medical center. Don't show your face in public all day. The status of a female doctor was low. It was already shameful for a noble marquis's daughter to be a female doctor. How could she run to a group of men all day? Today's old man was not cute. Gu Jiao looked at him with disdain. She did not say a word and walked out with an expressionless face. This girl. The old marquis was angered by Gu Jiao's look of disdain. This is not a place where women like you can come. After his anger subsided, the old marquis's gaze fell on the red-tasseled spear. He was used to using the 9-section whip and long sword, so he did not have much interest in spears and lances. But with that girl's interference, he could not help but look at the red-tasseled spear a few more times. Don't say it. It was quite impressive. Actually, this red-tasseled spear had a history. It was originally the weapon of the Yan country's famous general, Xian Yuanli. Xian Yuanli gave it to the Qin country's king, and the Qin country's king gave it to the Qin country's Wu marquis. When the two armies fought, Marquis Xianping killed the Qin country's Wu marquis, and took the other side's weapon for himself. When the Qin country's king surrendered, he hoped to take back the red-tasseled spear. His Majesty agreed, but Marquis Xianping shamelessly refused to give it back. It was not completely true that he liked it. Didn't he just throw it into the armory to collect dust? Normal people could not use this red-tasseled spear. First, it was too heavy and hard to control. Second, they were worried that Marquis Xianping would suddenly remember it and ask them for it back. He was really capable of doing such a thing. The old marquis held the red-tasseled spear in his hand and played with it a few times. Suddenly, he thought of his sworn little brother. He inexplicably felt that his little brother Gu would like this red-tasseled spear. What was going on? However, little brother Gu was too young. He did not know if he would be able to control this kind of Yan country's heavenly weapon that had been used with a blood blade and had a strong murderous aura. Coming out of the military camp, the second master said, I won't be going back to the medical center in a while. I have to go to little brother-in-law's house. He told Xiao Sanzi the address, and coincidentally, it was not too far from Immortal Music House. Gu Jiao's original plan was to wait for the limelight to die down before going to Immortal Music House. But now that they were already at the door, it seemed that there was no harm in going. After the second master got off the carriage, Gu Jiao took out the men's clothing that was prepared in the carriage and changed into it. She also put on the mask. Okay, just stop here. Gu Jiao said to Xiao Sanzi, I will walk there myself. Okay. Xiao Sanzi agreed. Gu Jiao got off the carriage, crossed a street, and arrived at the entrance of Immortal Music House. But Immortal Music House was closed. Gu Jiao was puzzled. She stopped a young man who was selling oranges on the side of the road and asked, Why is Immortal Music House closed? The young man said, I heard that today is Immortal Music House's courtesan's birthday. Immortal Music House closed the door for a day and rented the largest pleasure boat on the lake to celebrate her birthday. If you want to see them, go to Li Lake. I don't know if the boat has left yet. Many thanks. Gu Jiao thanked him. It was good that they did not close the business and run away. She would not go to the pleasure boat. She would come back another day. Gu Jiao turned around and walked back. She was used to walking on the right side of the road. The left side that she came from was now her right side. When she walked halfway, she saw an old beggar lying on the side of the road. The old beggar had fallen asleep, and his face was covered with a tattered straw hat. In front of him was a chessboard. The chessboard was very old. It was drawn on a wooden board, and the chess pieces were made of stone. They were randomly smeared with ink to make them black chess pieces. On the edge of the chessboard, there was a rag with a stone. On the rag, there was a line of crooked words. One game, one tail. The implication was that one had to pay one tael to play a game of chess with him. The people passing by all laughed at this beggar for being crazy. He was offering one tael to see if anyone was willing to play with him. There was also a line of crooked words. One loss, 10 taels. In other words, whoever won against him would be able to take 10 taels of silver from him. Everyone wanted to laugh even more. Did a stinky beggar know how to play chess? Still boasting shamelessly, one loss, 10 taels. Who did he think he was? The chess saint of the 6 countries? Besides, with his poor appearance, they were afraid that he did not even have 10 copper coins on him. This was a madman. Gu Jiao looked at the chessboard, took a black chess piece from the chess box, and placed it down. Then she left. The old beggar slept until the sun was setting in the west before he woke up. Today was another day that he did not open for business. The old beggar yawned. Just as he was about to pack up his things and go back, he saw that the chessboard he had placed outside had been touched. He thought that it was another child who was bored. But when he took a closer look, he was dumbfounded. His chessboard had been broken by someone. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that could not be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/111959782. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 318. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. The Imperial Palace. The moon was above the branches. The Crown Prince consort sat on the floor that gave off a faint woody fragrance. In front of her was a short long table with a chessboard on it. The Crown Prince consort did not like crowds. The Eastern Palace was usually very quiet, and would only be noisy when Qin Chuyu was present. However, Qin Chuyu had moved to the Emperor's Pure Flowers Palace these days. The Eastern Palace was as quiet as water again. The palace servants stood by the Crown Prince consort's side. They looked down and did not make a sound. Suddenly, with a clap, a chess piece landed on the chessboard. The Crown Prince consort smiled in relief. It's done. Only then did the palace servants dare to look at her. The personal female official asked with a smile. Crown Prince consort, what is done? The Crown Prince consort smiled. I finally solved this chess game. Which game did you solve? The Crown Prince strode into the room. The female official and the palace servants all bowed. Your Highness the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince consort also wanted to stand and bow. But the Crown Prince quickly walked up and stopped her. The Crown Prince held her hand and sat down next to her. He looked at the chessboard on the table and said, You played again? I had nothing to do, so I played casually, the Crown Prince consort said. The Crown Prince said with a smile. We see that you play every day. Do you like playing chess that much? You spend more time looking at the chessboard than you do with us. The Crown Prince consort said warmly. Crown Prince is joking. We are not joking. We are really jealous. Although the Crown Prince said this, his gaze and actions towards the Crown Prince consort were full of affection. He held her hand tightly and asked, You still have not answered our question. What game did you solve? The Crown Prince really did not have much interest in playing chess, But if it was related to the crown prince consort, then he would be very attentive. The crown prince consort used her other hand that was not held by him to point at the chessboard and said, "It's this the Kuan game." The crown prince stilled. Kuan game? Which Kuan game? Sir Meng's Kuan game? In the chess world, it seemed that only Mr. Meng's game could be called a Kuan game. No matter how much the crown prince disliked playing chess, he had heard of old Mr. Meng's reputation. He was undoubtedly the chess sage of the Six Nations. He had set up countless chess games in his life, of which the 8 chess games were the most famous. Very few could solve them, but the crown princess had solved the first game at the age of 13. In the next few years, she solved 5 more rounds. This kind of achievement was rare even in the Six Nations, especially when she was so young. The chess expert of Jin Nation was already over 40 years old, and had solved 6 games. However, he still couldn't solve the last 2 games, Qian and Kuren. The crown prince held her hand tightly in excitement, and looked into her beautiful eyes. "Linlang, you've done something that no woman in the world has ever done. No, you've done something that no one else in the world has ever done. Even men can't compare to you." The crown princess lowered her head and smiled shyly. "While I was injured, I concentrated on studying chess in the Eastern Palace. Speaking of which, it was a blessing in disguise." The crown prince said seriously, "Where? Other people wouldn't be able to figure it out even if they studied it for a lifetime. You've solved it in just a few months? No, this is such a pleasant surprise. I have to report it to Imperial Father." The crown prince did as he said. He really went to find the emperor immediately. The emperor was diligent. He ate and slept all day and night. It was already late at night, but he was still reviewing memorials in the imperial study. His expression didn't change much when he saw the crown prince. He just pinched his tired forehead and asked, "Why are you here so late?" There was a small couch for the emperor to rest on behind the screen. At this moment, there was an even snoring sound. Apparently, Qin Chuyu was tired from playing in the imperial study and fell asleep on the couch. The crown prince looked away and asked, "Imperial Father, do you want me to bring little Qi back? I don't want to disturb you." That little snoring was too rhythmic. The emperor said, "No need. Tell me, what is it?" "It's like this. Linlang solved old Mr. Meng's chess game just now." The crown prince couldn't hide his pride. It was the Kuan game. The emperor's hand paused as he read the memorials. Surprise flashed across his eyes. "Really? Really? If Imperial Father doesn't believe me, you can call Linlang here." The crown prince patted his head with a smile. "I left in a hurry and forgot to bring the chessboard. Guards, go to the Eastern Palace and bring the crown princess's chessboard here." "Yes." A eunuch outside the imperial study answered. The eunuch quickly brought the chessboard and presented it to the emperor with both hands. The emperor's chess skills were much better than the crown prince's. He looked at the game on the chessboard and immediately understood the mystery. He couldn't hide the amazement in his eyes. "So that's how it was solved. Why didn't I think of it?" The crown prince smiled with pride. "Imperial Father, you are busy every day and don't have much time to play chess. Linlang has been recuperating in the Eastern Palace these days. When she has time, she carefully studied chess." These words were not only to excuse the emperor, but also to praise Wen Linlong's excellence. She didn't solve the game before because she didn't have time. Now that she had time, she solved the Kuan game in just 1 or 2 months. Who else in the world was so smart? Perhaps his cousin who had passed away was one. His cousin solved Elder Meng's first game when he was 10 years old. Unfortunately, he died young. However, even if he was alive, he might not be able to do better than Linlang. Linlang had already solved the Kuan game. Not to mention that Linlang was a woman. There was no woman more outstanding than Linlang in the world. The emperor nodded in satisfaction. He had some reservations about this daughter-in-law in the past. After all, she was once engaged to Xiaoheng. However, the crown prince insisted on marrying her. Moreover, she was indeed very talented and Empress Xiao liked her very much. Thus, the emperor agreed to this marriage. In the years after they got married, the crown prince improved rapidly. He grew from a reckless and ignorant boy to a reserved and steady man. The crown princess played a big part in this. Yes. The emperor couldn't hide his praise. The crown princess did well. Imperial father, she is the first person in the 6 countries, right? The crown prince asked tentatively. The emperor nodded with a smile. Of course. Other than Elder Meng, your wife is the first person to solve the coin game. I will write a letter to each country to announce this great news. The crown prince cupped his hands and smiled. This son congratulates imperial father. There was no national boundary in learning and chess. This was not only the crown princess's glory, but also the entire Zhao nation's glory. The emperor was overjoyed. I will think about how to reward you. You are basking in her glory again. The crown prince straightened his back and said, This son has good taste and found a wife who brings good fortune to my husband. The emperor laughed. It was obvious that he was in a good mood. The memorial he received just now was related to the Eastern Palace, urging the crown prince to take in more concubines and expand the imperial family's bloodline. However, the crown princess suddenly made him proud, so the emperor temporarily suppressed this memorial. The next day, after Gu Jiao sent little Jing Kong to the directorate, she went directly to the medical center. When she passed by the female school, she heard about the crown princess solving the chess game. Did you hear? The crown princess solved Elder Meng's game? Didn't the crown princess solve it long ago? Not the 6th game, but the 7th game of the coin game. She even solved the coin game? Didn't they say that no one can solve the 2 games of heaven and earth? That's why the crown princess isn't human at all. She's an immortal. Of course, there were also those who were still brooding over the crown princess's broken bridge accident on the first day of the new year. Why are you so happy that she solved it? It's as if you solved the chess game. Moreover, how do you know if she really solved it or not? How can this kind of thing be faked? Just wait and see. It will be posted on the imperial list soon. Gu Jiao's expression was indifferent as she walked past the girls who were quarreling. She had no feelings for the crown princess and had no interest in her glory and achievements. She had recently obtained some saltpeter and wanted to try making something. She had never done it before, so she was a little unfamiliar with it. She poured out the saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal and placed them on the ground. She wanted to make gunpowder. She needed weapons to make up for her lack of martial strength. Before she recovered the strength of her previous life, she really needed something powerful. If she had gunpowder last time when the assassination happened on the cliff, she wouldn't have been forced to almost fall off the cliff. Gunpowder was one of the 4 great inventions of ancient times, but gunpowder didn't seem to have appeared in this fictional dynasty. With the raw materials she could currently find, she could only make black gunpowder. It wasn't as effective as yellow gunpowder, and it wasn't a powerful explosive, but it was still much more powerful than silver needles and darts. Gu Jiao had a rough idea of the raw materials, but she wasn't sure about the ratio. The slightest difference could lead to a huge difference. A small change in the dosage could cause the black gunpowder's power to greatly decrease. So she had to be patient and try. The charcoal didn't have any smell, and the sulfur was tolerable. But this saltpeter. The second boss used his sleeve to cover his nose as he came to Gu Jiao's small courtyard. Little Gu, what is this? Saltpeter. Gu Jiao said. Seeing that the second boss didn't seem to understand, she changed her words. It's soil with bird droppings. The second boss. The corner of the second boss's mouth twitched. What do you want to do with bird droppings? Gu Jiao said, boil. The corner of the second boss's mouth twitched again. He looked at Gu Jiao with an indescribable expression. It's not boiling, right? Boiling in a pot? Gu Jiao nodded. It has to be boiled to get the saltpeter. After filtration, it will be made into saltpeter. You came at the right time. Help me boil it. The second boss's whole body felt unwell. You're a young girl. You can boil anything, but you have to boil bird droppings. Saltpeter is clean. Gu Jiao said. I don't care, I don't want to boil bird droppings. After a quarter of an hour, the second boss miserably held a stick and began to boil bird droppings as if there was nothing left to live for. After boiling, the white foam was scooped out and filtered with gauze. Then it was wrapped and buried in the ashes. The weather was hot, and the water evaporated very quickly. In the afternoon, a few heavy bags of saltpeter were ready. The saltpeter made by Gu Jiao was sparkling and translucent, with a faint white color. Gu Jiao was very satisfied. She looked at the second boss, whose face was full of disgust, and said, "Saltpeter is actually a very good medicinal material." The second boss, "Don't tell me you gave it to me before." Gu Jiao nodded seriously. "Last time you had indigestion, I gave you a bag of white powder. Did you forget? So he ate bird droppings at that time? Let him die on the spot." The second boss was deeply shocked. He was carried back to his room by Xiao Sanzi to rest. Gu Jiao let the maid clean up the scene. According to the ratio of 50% saltpeter, 30% sulfur, and 20% charcoal, she mixed a black powder. Last time little Dudu came in handy. She filled it with water and wrapped it in cloth to make a simple airbag. She put the airbag on her body and put on a helmet. After igniting it, she found that the blasting effect was not ideal. Gu Jiao raised the ratio of saltpeter and lowered the ratio of sulfur. Then she was blown away. Marquis Xianping rarely passed by here today, so he wanted to see his daughter-in-law. The main reason was that last time he went to see his daughter-in-law in Bishui Alley, he met little Jing Kong. He was so abused that he did not even remember what he was doing. Today he was smart. He did not go to Bishui Alley, but went directly to the medical center. This way, he would not let the little monk disturb him. He walked through the hall and came to Gu Jiao's courtyard. But what did he see? On a lush branch, Gu Jiao was tied up by a pile of cloth strips. She was wrapped like a small silkworm cocoon. She was hanging on a branch, making creaking sounds. Only her small head was exposed, and her expression was cold. Marquis Xianping could not help but laugh. Some people did not change their nature. They were obviously here to win people over, and they even thought of their lines on the way here. But when they saw Gu Jiao's miserable and cold appearance, they wanted to bully her again. Marquis Xianping raised his head and smiled. "Little girl, do you want to come down? Call me father, and I'll put you down." Gu Jiao ignored him. She turned around and turned the back of her head to him. But she used too much strength and turned too big, so she turned back to her original position. Marquis Xianping looked at that cold little face and laughed until his body was shaking. If someone else laughed like this, they would have been greasy enough to make people want to beat them up. But Marquis Xianping was born handsome, and his smile was still pleasing to the eye. Gu Jiao looked at his handsome face and hesitated for a moment. Her expression softened slightly, and she asked coldly, "What do you want me to call you?" Marquis Xianping raised his eyebrows. "Father." Gu Jiao nodded. "Yes, Marquis Xianping." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111935035. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. That you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.